So, as a preliminary matter, this is the Conservation Commission. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda. I'm skipping that part. Let's do members and staff and make sure that we're here. So we'll do a roll call kind of thing as usual. So Bill Holt.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Gretchen.
Here.
Okay. And then Ben Gehagen.
Yes.
Dan Streeter.
Yes.
Bill Lord. Bill, how's your audio? Are you muted?
Can't hear you.
All right, we'll come back to him. Kevin Stromsky.
Here.
And Peter Pecos.
Hello, good evening.
Excellent. Bill Lord, is your audio up yet?
Oh,
He's calling.
Okay, you're calling in. Good. Let us know when that comes in, and then we'll have everybody's audio confirmed. All right. So, back to the script. Good evening. This October 20th, 2020 open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Conservation Commission is convening by Zoom as posted on the agenda. You may join us by going onto the agenda and following all of the relevant links and codes. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video and/or telephone conference. Meeting materials were provided to commission members prior to the meeting. Applicants or their representatives may be called upon to speak, and if needed, share information to the screen. Please state your intention to do so after you've been called. For the ground rules for the meeting, I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, question, or motion. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please use earbuds or earphones with tablets. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Please be aware that video participants can see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking and address. Board and committee members should be called upon in first name alphabetical order. If board or committee members wish to engage with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. After the board has spoken, the chair will afford the public comment as follows. The chair will seek questions through the raise hand function. For video conference participants, this function can be accessed by clicking on the participants option listed in the menu below the photo gallery. The window will open and display on the right. On the bottom of this participant area, you will see the list of phone or video participants, and on the bottom, you will see the ability to click on a button to raise hand. Please ensure your name is displayed. List your name, address, and then your question. Telephone participants can use their phone's keypad while in a Zoom meeting to raise hand by hitting *9. The chair will then seek questions from the public that have hit the raise hand button in the order of which they are listed. The participant will be called on to identify their name and address and then their question. The chair will afford the applicant or the representative the opportunity to reply. Your hand will be lowered when you have been given the floor for your question. The board will continue down the list of those in the raise hand column and again afford the applicant or rep an opportunity to speak. Should there be a physical or electronic submittal of questions or concerns, It will be read for the record, and again, the applicant or rep will be afforded the opportunity to speak if the issues raised have not yet been addressed. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote, and additional agenda items will be called upon and handled in a similar manner. Great. Got that out of the way. So let's get rolling. First item on the agenda. The Town of Newbury, 14th Street, DEP number 05013 ##, a continued NOI to improve the right-of-way and construct an emergency access driveway. All right, so just for the sake of everybody here, I know that there's plenty of people in this crowd that are probably here for this. The way I would like to do this, I'm willing to hear out any disagreements, but in the interest of keeping things moving, I'd like to let sort of both sides have their say, have their presentation. I would like to then give each member of the board a question, because we will not be making any decisions tonight. We will be setting up a walk. And so in the interest of keeping things moving, and we will also additionally probably, in all likelihood, set aside a meeting dedicated to this topic to let everybody have their say in a longer and more free-form format. But since we've got lots of other things on the agenda, if nobody would have any objections to that particular scheme, I'd like to try to do that. And then we can stay sort of strictly in the introductory phase of this project rather than getting into any theoreticals, shall we say. So that being said, Bill Holt, you want to go first? You want to do anything, or you want to just go straight to Tom or to Mary?
Well, I do want to make one notation. This meeting is being recorded. I can see that it's being recorded. I know that all meetings in the past have been recorded. There was a glitch in the last meeting, and for some reason the recording did not take place, so there was no available video of the meeting to the public, available to the public. And we don't know what happened exactly, but it did not get recorded in the last meeting. But this one is currently being recorded. I can see that on my screen, so hopefully there's no glitches and it will be recorded and be available in the future.
Bill Holt, are you, is the recording happening off of your computer or off of a separate computer, or just because you're
I believe it's
glitching?
being recorded at Town Hall. I see that it's being recorded. I have an icon that says it's being recorded. I think
Mine
Gretchen
also
has the
says
same
recorded too.
notation on her.
Okay. Just
Yep.
because for whatever reason you've got some lag, you just froze on us. So I know last week we had some trouble with you doing this too. So you may want to call now so that we don't lose your audio right in the middle of needing it. Okay, but still good to know. Thank you. Hopefully that's just a glitch that somebody can figure out. I obviously have no idea how that works. All right.
If Bill were to turn off his video, it could help if that's the issue. If he's having a bandwidth issue and he turns off his video,
Yeah.
his audio will still come through.
All right. Well, hopefully Bill Holt, one way or the other, whether you turn off the audio or turn on the cell phone, we'll keep your lovely singing voice in our ears tonight. All right. Well, then let's get into this. Who's first? I forget.
Mr. Chairman, Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. I'm here on behalf of the Select Board. I believe several members of the board are in attendance. With me tonight are Libby Bowker and Lisa Mead from Town Council, as well as Sean Malone, the civil engineer on the project. What I'd like to do is give I should start by saying that we are starting the hearing anew. We've done a new public notice. There are some members of the commission that were not on here when we originally opened the hearing. I think it was in 2000,
Hello?
was it 2018 perhaps? Anyhow, so we need to basically re-enter everything into the record tonight. I'll give you I'll turn it over to Libby Bowker, who is a specialist in environmental law. She'll give you guys a view of the regulations for dunes that pertain to the project. Then she'll turn it back over to me. I'm going to go over the site conditions, a general overview of the project, and then have Sean Malone get a little bit into the engineering. And then back over to Libby to wrap up on the regulatory front, and then turn it back to you guys, if that's okay with you.
Sure. Just out of curiosity, it sounds like a super long run. Is this a 15-minute thing that you just talked about, or is that going to be an hour?
Yeah, no. I think we're going to be brief, but we need to get everything in. So so I just wanted to give you the roadmap of how our team expects to present to you tonight, and then there certainly will be questions after that. So. Okay. So with that, let me share my screen. Put the plans up on the screen. I did email in. I do need you to enable screen sharing. I did send in proof of a butters mailing and a copy of the updated legal ad that was run. So there we go. All right. So I will just leave it on this overview of the project area and turn it over to Libby to give a quick overview of those regulations.
Hey, Tom. So as the chair graciously mentioned, we are in an introductory phase of this project. So since we're looking at this with fresh eyes, I just wanted to revisit the performance standards that apply to this project to kind of frame the consideration that we're doing here. As this commission, I'm sure, is well aware, we have resource areas here on Plum Island, and the Wetlands Protection Act regulations allows work to occur in those resource areas if certain performance standards are met. Under the Wetlands Protection Act here, the work is occurring in a coastal dune, and the regulations allow this work to go forward as long as any alteration of the coastal dune does not have an adverse effect on the following: the ability for waves to remove sand from the dune, disturb the vegetation so as to destabilize the dune, cause any modification to the dune form that would increase the potential for storm or flood damage, interfere with the landward or lateral movement of the dune, or cause removal of sand from the dune artificially. There's another performance standard here which doesn't apply to this project, as this is not any identified bird nesting habitat. And I will know that there are different performance standards under the local bylaw, and those are found in section 95-4, and that's performance standards A through H. However, upon a closer look, the area that this project is proposed to take place and the type of project that is proposed, we're not building a house, we're more than 200 feet away from the crest of a primary dune. The only applicable performance standards are also covered by satisfaction of the state performance standards. And with that context in mind, I'll turn it back to Tom to demonstrate how this project satisfies those. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Libby. So the site is off Old Point Road. You can see in this aerial image, if you can see my mouse, but there is a driveway that cuts across several parcels of town land and accesses a pull-off area that is used by the house that's on parcel U03-46. And it also then continues and is used by the houses on U03-52 and U03-51. I'm not sure if 50 uses it, but basically it's accessed by a number of different homes, but it cuts across town land. And the project proposes to put in an emergency access road that would cut through a short section of dune and then connect to the end of the finished end of 14th Street. The select board voted in a policy statement to express the need for this, but in short, you have a developed northerly section of Plum Island, the northeasterly section that has a linchpin of traffic, one pinch point where northern, southern, and Plum Island Boulevard all meet. And if there's a fire or an accident, storm damage, the entire northeastern section of Plum Island, both in Newburyport and Newbury, it can become inaccessible. And so the purpose is to have an alternate means of getting in there and getting out of there for an emergency. What we're proposing is a drive that would be used very infrequently, but it would be and it would be gated, but it would be used for those emergencies when there's no other means of getting around. Since the last version of the plans that you guys saw, we've made some adjustments, and let me flip through. But first, let me go through a couple things. In the Dune performance standards, the Wetland Protection Act has some characteristics of dunes that are important for you guys to consider as you apply the regulations. One is the ability of the dune to erode in response to coastal beach conditions. This site is significantly far from the coastal beach, that it will really only erode, even in its current condition, during a massive storm event. Otherwise, there really is no normal beach erosion pattern that would affect this site. However, during a large storm, it certainly is currently able to erode, with the possible exception of the small paved section of 14th Street that's included in our project site. Dune volume. So you need to consider how the project affects dune volume. Dune form, which needs to be allowed to change water, so natural. This site is currently able to perform fairly naturally within the context of the dune complex that is local. It is, however, surrounded by development. It's not really connected to the ocean dunes, but it does behave well. Vegetative cover, it does have a lot of vegetative cover, and the ability of the dune to landward or laterally, and the ability of the dune to continue serving as bird nesting habitat. So we don't really have bird nesting habitat as an issue here, but the ability of the dune to move landward or laterally, that would only be during a major coastal flooding event that these dunes in that manner. There'll be some shifting of sands within this dune complex, but it is cut off from the major sediment supplies of the ocean in this area. So again, here's more pictures. This is the area where the 14th Street finished end comes in, and the roadway would come around. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but basically run and just clip the outer edge of these shrubs. So I'm going to now turn to the actual plan set. So we come in, we're basically going to start work on this existing gravel drive using clean sand. We're going to bring the grades up. So we're doing absolutely no cut of dune except when we get above elevation 13. And when we, after that, right in this little crest here, there is some cut, and then we come down and match into 14th Street. One of the dune functions that's important is how this site would respond to a flood event, how the sand would move around, and how the dunes would interact with floodwaters. Below elevation 13, within the 100-year flood, the dune and its volume is important because that directly interacts with floodwaters and provides a means of dissipating the energy of a flood. The sand that's above elevation 13 is essentially a reservoir of sand ready to be eroded into the flood and then serve, again, that function of storm damage prevention and protection from flood. Because we're only cutting above elevation 13, but we are keeping all that sand volume within the dune system, we're going to go through that with you, but our position is that we're not affecting in any negative manner the flood function of this. The vegetative cover, we have a plan for mitigating the vegetative impact within this roadway. We basically will clip through the outer edge of a shrub stand of bayberry, and then we are going through a mix of sand, beech heather, and dune grass primarily through the rest of the path. You can see that within that there is some areas that are labeled here in green. Those are areas that we are planning on planting. And the area close to this bayberry stand is a fringe around some small native trees that are also within there. We would be adding bayberry along the back side of that, so we don't have any net loss of the shrubs. We'll also be planting some sand areas in these other locations. The net change shown on this plan is actually a reduction of about 1,000 square feet, but what we have done is we have now added in a new area, which is about 2,000 square feet, which is on this parcel, which is out of the plan view. This parcel is actually the area where one of the homes uses to pull off their cars, and they walk up this pathway to their home. This is where the project is going to occur in here. So we're going to add another 2,000 square feet of American beach grass plantings in there. So to keep this brief, basically what we're doing with this project now is essentially having a permanent impact in the gravel portion of the drive of about 3,000 square feet. We have about 30, and these are rough numbers, about 3,500 square feet of dune that is going to be disturbed by adding additional sand or the cut up above elevation 13 that will then be vegetated. We have some other areas that are existing gravel drive that will be changed in elevation. And we have additional small area, like 200 something square feet of pavement that has to be adjusted and then repaved at the end of 14th Street. We're not impacting dune volume in a negative way. In fact, we're increasing volume by about 1,500 cubic feet. We are not any cut or change in dune form that negatively affects how floods behave in the site. And you know, so in terms of how the dune functions, it's actually going to continue to function just as it does now, with some additional resiliency due to the additional volume. I'd like to turn it over to Sean to go through the plans with you. Sean, do you want to try to grab my screen share, or do you just want me to flip?
Tom, if you can put it on the fourth sheet and maybe just zoom into the plan view there a little bit. Yeah, go back, third sheet, previous.
Okay, yep.
Just zoom into that plan view a little bit. That would be helpful. And
okay.
Yeah, and I will be very brief. I think Tom kind of hit on some of the points of the road. So we've designed this as basically a 10-foot wide emergency access drive. It has been designed to accommodate the fire department apparatus with a 35-foot turning radius that we got from the fire chief. And if you'll see on this plan, around the corner of the turn, the road width increases to about 14.5 feet. And again, that's to accommodate that fire apparatus as it comes around the corner. As Tom mentioned, we don't have any cut below elevation 13. The only cut we have is up once we get into the 14th Street right away, and then into some of the bank just to the north of that. We have some cut into the sand there. And then conversely, we have some fill on the opposite side of the road. And we're delineating some temporary construction easements to accommodate that grading. In addition to the minimum 10-foot width, we also have a foot shoulder on either side of the roadway to help with the stability. We're proposing this as a gravel drive. I think on our plans right now, we had a leftover, basically having a pea stone surface. We will be revising that to a gravel surface, something that'll be more durable under the weight of a fire truck, basically. We'll have gates on both sides of the drive. We're showing a gate about 20 feet off of the access to the southwest, and then a second gate just beyond the limit of the pavement of 14th Street up in the northeast. And I think that pretty much sums it up for the engineering behind it. And I think I'll turn it over to Libby now.
Sean, I don't want to take too much more of the commission's time, but just to reiterate what Tom mentioned is the performance standards have to do with the adverse impact of this resource area. And what the regulations allow for is while a project may cut down some vegetation or move some dune location, that's allowed as long as it doesn't adversely impact the function of the dune. And again, as Tom mentioned, this project is actually adding net volume of sand. This dune is essentially a reservoir. So by adding sand to it, we're maintaining its ability to function as it's intended to. And by maintaining the volume of vegetation, we're also ensuring that its stability is continuous between pre-project conditions and post-project conditions. And I think that wraps it up on my end, unless someone else has anything else to add.
Okay, good. You guys, thank you. That was an appropriate amount of time. All right. So then let's turn it over to Mary.
Thank you. And for the record, my name is Mary Rimmer, Rimmer Environmental Consulting, 57 Boston Road in Newbury. And I'm representing a group of neighbors that are concerned about this project. And I am helping them to review compliance with the Wetland Protection Act, the state as well as local wetland bylaw. With me also is Larry Hayes, who's a project engineer who is reviewing this for the civil engineering side of things, and he's going to speak briefly after me. And then I'm not sure if some of the neighbors might want to say something specifically as well, briefly. My first comments are more administrative and procedural, and I just wanted to clarify a couple things. Now, this project was originally filed in 2009 and has a file number of 0500996. And it's not clear to me whether or not that file number is still valid, if we're still reviewing it under that file number, or if there's been a new submission to DEP since that time. Has DEP been kept abreast of all these plan changes? There were a number of comments that DEP had that are still posted online, you could still find, that had to do with their concern about the project, performing an alternatives analysis, questioning whether or not the project requires a variance, meaning that they felt there's a possibility that it does not comply with the performance standards for the Wetland Protection Act, and obtaining a variance is a very high burden, and it requires a demonstration of overriding public health and safety, and requires the MEPA process review and a superseding order of conditions that denies the project from DEP. So it's quite a lengthy process. So there's, to my knowledge, not been a specific response to those initial DEP comments. This project has been submitted sort of piecemeal over a couple of iterations and several different plan revisions. So I would suggest to the commission that either new filing is made with it, provides all the information in one location, or at least a new document presented that is complete and references the most recent plans and all the new information that's been submitted. Because I know some of the information that's been relied upon is an alternatives analysis that was done by Vine Associates back in 2009. A lot has changed since then. There's been a lot of procedural changes at DEP in terms of their understanding of their own performance standards and how they're applied. So I think that's important. And also, to clarify those issues, and also to clarify whether or not the project is being filed under the local bylaw as well. Tonight is the first time, and at the in this recent submission, the addendum recently submitted by Hughes is the first time I understand that there's been any recognition of the local bylaw. I think that it would behoove the commission to take a specific vote to affirm whether or not the bylaw applies to this project. I think it does. I think it's pretty clear. The bylaw specifically references development, which includes roads. This clearly is a road, and it's occurring within a resource area that's subject to the bylaw. So I think that that would be helpful to have on the record. And whether or not there are any other further local approvals that are required for this project, the Wetland Protection Act requires that any other local approvals that are required be applied for at the time of the public hearing. And it's not clear to me whether or not there are any other further approvals, site plan review, anything else that's required in order to construct this roadway. Which reminds me that one of the other DEP comments was that there would need to be some kind of restriction on this roadway that would prevent it from ever providing frontage for further lots, and it would remain for emergency access only. And I haven't seen any documentation that would provide that language that was requested by DEP back in 2009. It's a language prohibiting making emergency access a public way, cut and fill volumes, and notes that the project may require a variance. Those were some of the items from DEP. We appreciate the commission is going to send a site visit. I think that's very important because I think there are other alternatives that you'll want to also look at. Again, the alternatives analysis that was completed is insufficient and old, dated, and needs to be updated and needs to address some other potential areas that would have potentially less impact than this project. And then as far as the substantive project related comments, I think that, if there is a true public health emergency, my clients are not interested in standing in the way of that, but that there are and there appear to be other alternatives that are less impactful directly to the dune and directly to their own properties. And they've been very concerned about that, have continued to participate with the town representatives, including Selectman Colby and town manager Tracy Blaze. The project purpose hasn't really been very fully established, other than saying that there could be some event at the town center that might warrant this road. And so in order to demonstrate the project purpose, more information needs to be provided on where that breach would occur. What information, what data are you relying on to support that presumption, other than that, you think that it might occur if it did occur at the town center, that would be bad. Is there specific evidence that you can provide that suggests that that is a likely occurrence and this actual location would help to mitigate that? That hasn't been provided. The project has been referred to as a drive. It is a road. It needs to comply with the state stormwater standards. It's not a drive. A drive is an access to a single family home. This is clearly a road. It's proposed to handle heavy equipment, including emergency vehicles. It needs to have a sufficient base in order to do that. And so it needs to comply with stormwater standards. It will generate some runoff, and Larry Hayes is prepared to speak about that, but the material will become compacted out of reuse and it will shed water, and that needs to be addressed as part of this project. The project, in my opinion, does not comply with Dune standards, the Dune performance standards. It requires a significant change in the Dune form and volume, and it involves cuts. The regulations don't specify cuts that might occur above elevation 13. The cuts and the fills are not occurring in the same location, and the fill material that's being brought in is not sand. It's material to bed a road in. it's gravel, and that's not consistent with barrier beach. I already mentioned the alternatives analysis and the extent of the emergency requiring the project. The planting plan that's provided shows mitigation plantings in over a dozen different areas of very irregular shape in an area that's really pretty undisturbed presently. And in an interdunal area, it's very common for portions of the interdune areas to not be vegetated. The lack of vegetation is not due to disturbance in that area. It's just due to natural conditions. Trying to plant in those areas makes it not only a very difficult, but it's a very hot, dry environment, but the number and size of those mitigation areas makes it almost impossible to monitor and determine whether or not they've been successful. So I don't think the mitigation plan is adequate or makes a lot of sense in terms of implementation. And the project hasn't fully demonstrated how it complies with the local bylaw, other than the statement I heard tonight. The project doesn't have an operation and maintenance plan, and it hasn't identified any areas of stockpiling of materials or staging areas during construction that might result in additional impacts. So those are my primary comments, and I don't expect you to respond to all of them right now, but I wanted to get them on the record. And I wanted to also introduce to you Larry Hayes, who has a few comments about the roadway design itself. Larry, are you there?
So Tom, you need to stop sharing your screen so I can unmute.
Sure.
I had that on mute. So again, my name is Larry Hayes. I'm a civil engineer. I was asked to get involved with this project back in late December, early January of 2018, beginning of 2019. It was presented to the town December of 2018. Budding neighbors had, considerable concern with the project as it was proposed in 2018. I've seen 4 separate versions of the plan that have been brought forward in the past almost 2 years. This latest version, which we received last Thursday evening, has changed significantly from the initial plan. The one thing that hasn't changed is the proposed section of the gravel road. They're specifying 2 inches of pea stone over a 12-inch gravel base. I've overseen construction and designed many, many miles of road. I've never seen anything like this. The biggest question is, as designed, is it capable of supporting emergency vehicles, or any vehicles for that matter? And the answer is no. Sean just mentioned that they're coming forward with some revised details on that. The details as are shown on the existing plan right now are woefully inadequate. They don't address, it was stated that, they're going to act like a sand reservoir. Considerable volume of gravel and, road surface is going to be coming. Not all going to be sand. I mean, any sand that is brought in is going to be locked underneath this gravel roadway. He just mentioned there's going to be 1 foot shoulder on this road. There's several areas where there's significantly more shoulder along the 14th Street right of way, which is going to extend onto private property. And something that I brought up since the beginning is, if a proper gravel road is brought in here, what's being done for stormwater mitigation off of this road? It is going to shed. It hasn't been said what the grading of this road is. Does it have a crown? Does it have a cross slope? It has to be solid surface. It's capable of supporting vehicular traffic. As it is right now, any vehicle that drove over the road as proposed would sink in up to its axles. That being said, I honestly question, the purpose of this road is for a vehicle to be able to traverse this route in an emergency situation. I kind of have a hard time believing that if vehicles either have to come on or come off across this road in under less than ideal conditions, I find it hard to believe that a 14.5 foot wide road, even at the increased turning radius. Glad to see that they finally realized that the road does need a turning radius in that corner. However, a 1-foot shoulder and a 14-foot road, as soon as someone drives off the side of that, the road is destroyed. The 1-foot shoulder, it said on Mr. Hughes's latest plan that it's going to be made out of sand. It's going to be planted. That I have a problem believing that, because a loose sand shoulder is going to be incapable of supporting the lateral load of a vehicle traveling on this access road. It's just not going to be capable of supporting it. The side of the road will collapse, a vehicle will sink in. The other thing, I've asked in several letters to the commission that additional information be shown. These plans still don't show enough detail to adequately evaluate the actual fee. The first plan, as it was presented in December of 18, made no mention of the substantial cut that's required along the northern side of the access road on private property, and it made no mention of the substantial fill that's going to be required on the southern side of the road on private property. I will guarantee the south side of the road on private property is going to require significantly more than a 1-foot shoulder. The initial plan is presented cutting into the dune on which lot is it? 3916 Key Street. Initially, it was going into that property over 23 feet. They're currently saying it's still going to cut into that dune over 15 feet. And there's a number of things that I find concerning with the plan. The note right on sheet 4, where is it here? States there are no concerns to be reviewed before construction, such as, but not limited to, store pipe vent for abutters, right of way, the amount of cover of the underground utilities, trees may need to be removed and or replaced, utility poles and guy wires, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's not something that's addressed in construction. That's something that's definitively, investigated prior to this thing approved and to be constructed. We just don't go out there and start building something and then realize, well, the initial design is woefully inadequate. We're going to have to put a proper gravel surface on this road that's capable of supporting vehicular loading. As it is right now, it does not. And I'm left with this latest plan with as many questions as I had at the beginning. After 4 versions of this plan, I still have as many questions as I did at the beginning of it regarding grading, actual elevations, actual areas of disturbance. One thing I find somewhat egregious is that initially it was stated that, the Conservation Commission meeting on December 18th, it stated that the applicant, that some minimal grading of the dune within the footprint of the proposed construction driveway would be required on the west end section of 14th Street due to the lopsided topography of the location. I mean, some minimal grading is significantly different than cutting into the side of a dune by over 23 feet. We're still cutting into the side of the dune at 39th T Street by over 15 feet, removing every mature tree on that property. And this plan, it's still lacking detail to adequately evaluate what it is. I mean, quite honestly, I would request that a proper peer review be done on these sets of plans. It shouldn't be up to the applicants to be reviewing plans for adequacy.
Okay, thanks, Larry. So then, Mary, do you want to close out with anything?
Just to say that I did submit comments to the commission dated March 16th, and hopefully you have those written comments that summarize the majority of what I said tonight. So thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, good. So let's go to the commission. Let's try to stick to one comment or question for now. So Ben, why don't you go first?
I think that Tom, great job bringing a Zoom background that's applicable to the hearing. Really nice, appreciate that. And then in general, the good questions and points brought up by Mary. I'm looking forward to the site walk. And I know we're trying to keep this short, but I think that I am very curious about the public safety needs. And I did notice that Chief of Police Lucy is in the audience tonight. So if he is here planning to comment about that, I would like to hear what he has to say.
All right. If you want to do that now, that's okay.
Okay, sure. Thank you for having me here. Very interesting stuff going on. I know it's been a long time coming and a lot of effort going into it. I'll be just offering some insight and perspective as the Emergency Management Director and the Chief of Police. As to the benefit, I see the benefit of this project. As I'm sure, not to go over everything again, the access concerns, if there is an event that obstructs flow of traffic in the area of what we call the center, where the convergence of those main thoroughways are, where northern, southern, and the boulevard all converge. That's the primary concern. We've had several incidences where we've had restrictions, whether it's storm or other events happening there. We had a little bit of a microcosm of an incident today, actually, that this option would have been beneficial. We had a fire scene, and it was at the intersection of the Plum Island Boulevard and Southern in Old Point, right in that area there at the old Angie's gas station. Now, again, this is a little bit of a different scenario, but it definitely would have benefited all the residences that were north on Old Point. They had no egress. There was no access either way for them to get either home or off the island. The reason for that was the Old Point was blocked off by a 5-inch fire hose going right across the road. If this was an option at the time for the school buses or for people to be able to move back and forth, if it was deemed an emergency, we wanted to utilize this, we could have, if there was any, some kind of emergency on that, on that end of the roadway. Now that's not a classic example of what this is, but it's just ironically, that's what happened today, where it could have been used if we needed to use that. But we do see significant situations where, we get a mean tide, backed by a storm, it's New England, it's Plum Island, we get a lot of that. And we, having that option to get around the areas that do become obstructed is a great resource. And when we talk about fire equipment, when it's not always about the emergency access, immediately, it's just access for anything to get out there where you don't have to drive through the brackish waters. In past history, we've lost cruisers. We've lost very expensive damage to fire equipment. Once you go through that kind of brackish water with that salt content, you can't clean it off right. You can do the best you can, but it definitely has a negative impact on town resources and town equipment. So there are a lot of benefits to this. So from an EMD perspective and a public safety perspective, I'm very, very much in favor and hope that this does find a resolve that's, acceptable to everybody involved. And if there's any other specific questions to me, I'm surely open to answer.
Great, thanks. Okay, Ben, you good?
I believe so. Look forward to the site walk.
So then let's move on to Bill Lord. Anything on your mind, Bill?
No, can you hear me? I'm good at this point. I'm looking forward to the site visit.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Daniel?
Yeah, probably got a lot of questions, but I think they're going to take, they'll come out eventually. The site walk is key, but I will just say that we have attorneys here. I'd sort of like to understand better what a temporary construction easement, grading easement is. And it just seems kind of like it's not a temporary easement if you regrade somebody's property.
It will be a permanent grading modification. There's no temporary, as soon as we change the grades, it's permanent.
Permanent easement, grading easement.
Well, and if I may speak briefly.
Larry, hold on, hold that thought. because
Okay.
Daniel was asking for the legal perspective primarily. And, all of the construction stuff, we're gonna have plenty of time for that.
Okay.
So does anyone want to take Daniel's question? We have a hand in the air.
Sure. Mr. Chair, Lisa Mead, Town Council. So
Great.
there would
Have a-
thank you. There would likely be two different kinds of easements. One would be temporary construction easement. The other might be a permanent grading easement, depending on the location. Those haven't been fully located yet because we're waiting to get to the final design after the comments from the commission. But there would be two different kinds of easements, the temporary construction easement and then any permanent grading easement.
Okay, thank you. Dan, how's that for you?
Good for now.
Okay, great. So then, Kevin, what's on your mind?
I think this was a great introduction to where the project's at now. So I think the site walk, and I think there was talk of alternatives that the residents have come up with, or butters have come up with. So I'm interested to hear that as well, because it does sound like we have some concerns that need to be talked about. And just as a heads up, James Stewart had his hand up. I don't know if anyone else saw that.
No, my screen isn't set up for that, but we'll get there.
Yep.
Thank you, though, for the heads up, Kev. All right, so Peter, have at it. What's on your mind?
I don't have any additional questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay. So then, let's go to the hands. And so, Jerry, what's on your mind?
Hi, I'm Jerry Heavey. I'm on the Board of Selectmen. My address is 43 Main Street. I just wanted to be here tonight to set the record straight what happened at the Board of Selectmen. At the meeting, we did vote to present it to you. However, I just want you folks to realize that at the time we were discussing this on several occasions, at least 5 different times, myself and Selectman Doyle asked if there was any additional input from the abutters, from the neighbors on 14th Street. We were told by the chairman, I don't know. Unfortunately, I was told when I met yesterday with the abutters and with the engineer, Mr. Hayes, that they were not notified that it was on the agenda for the selectmen. So I really feel the board was quite snookered, especially when we asked for the history. Was there any negative comments or whatnot? And I did go out there, I did meet with the abutters. So I think it's very important, and I think you'll see the huge problems that these abutters are going to have if this road goes in. And I guess this is my way of trying to do a do-over. I would certainly not have voted in favor of presenting it and having this project go forward to you folks if I had been supplied the information that at the evening's meeting we requested and we never received it. So it's very important. I think the abutters' properties will be changed forever, and not in a good way, in a very negative way, and especially when there appears to be an alternative route that can, can provide a safety escape plan and not harm the residents and the abutters on 14th Street. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening.
Great, thanks. Okay, so then all that being said, I think now it's our job. What would be a good date to do a site walk? Would be the first order for us to deal with.
Mr. Chairman, can I quickly, yes. I just want to quickly address the administrative questions that Mary Rimmer had. This is a new filing. It was
hold on. Tom.
Okay.
We're going to have so much time. We've got an agenda behind this, and I don't want to bump all that out of the way. And we will probably, in the next few minutes, put together a dedicated meeting for this, and we can work through all of the weeds there.
All right.
So let's see, what kind of date do people want to do for a site walk? Any Do you want to do before or after election day?
When are we going to do this hearing for this? I think that's probably affecting things.
All right, we can start there then. Do you have any dates that are for the commissioners? Are there any dates that we can't use? I'm presuming we want to do this before our next regular meeting. Is that right? Actually, Bill Holt, what's our schedule?
He's muted, but our next one was the 3rd, but we discussed moving it to the 10th to accommodate the election.
I think we thought that the 10th was a better option just because of election day.
Okay. So then if we're gonna, if the 10th is agreeable to Tom and Mary's people, then we should probably do that site walk just prior. So maybe the 6th, the 3rd, what is it? I need to pull up the calendar. What are the days here?
The week of the 1st, Sunday the 1st.
So if we do the 10th, that's a Tuesday. So yeah, what if we were talking like 6, 7, 8, 9 as potentially dates to do a walk, just so it's fresh when we come back on the 10th. Does anybody have anything in the way for any of those days or any preferences?
I'm not available the 6th and 7th.
Okay. So how's the 8th and 9th look for everybody else? Anything in the way there?
What about the 5th? That's a Thursday.
Yeah, we could do the 5th. As long as I think we're inside of a week, I'm not too bothered by it.
I can only do the morning on the 5th.
Okay. And then you would get into the 8th and 9th options.
I'm actually very narrow window the 5th. That's not true.
I think Bill was trying to say something. He was breaking up.
Yeah, I think it would have to be the 5th if you can hear me in the morning, because time changes on the 31st. So by 5 o'clock it'll be dark.
Yeah, good detail. Would that work for everybody involved if we did sometime in the morning of the 5th?
I think it works.
I could be there.
Fine with us.
Okay. So hearing no negatives, that's good. Let's do the morning of the 5th then. We want to do 9-ish, 10-ish, 11-ish. Who's got a preference? I would be better at something like 10, but I could do something like 9.
Actually, I could do either one.
I can do 10:30 easiest, but I can move early. I can move stuff around to be earlier.
Would 10 would be okay, Ben?
10:30, but I can move it early if it makes a difference for everybody else. I'll move my schedule around.
Okay. Peter, any thoughts?
No conflict.
You're good?
9, 10, or 11.
Okay.
Bill Lord saying no.
I'm out of town from the 4th to the 13th, so you just have to do it without me.
Bill, you're missing out.
I know.
Well, Tom.
I'm really gonna feel bad. I'll send you a postcard.
We'll send you a postcard. Take notes on this. Keep you updated.
Yeah.
All right, good. So then, if this works for everybody, let's do what? It'd be Ben. How hard is it to move it to 10? Is it a real annoyance or?
Fine.
All right, let's do 10 then, and then we can get it over and done with. All right, 10 a.m. on the 5th. Site walk. Okay. While we're doing the site walk of the proposed site, do we want to roll in a look at the alternative proposal? I presume. Is that agreeable to everybody?
You're talking about while we were there or right now?
No, while we're out there on the 5th, we'll just go to the proposed site and then we'll go down the road to whatever the alternative offering is, right?
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
they're at the same location.
Even better. So then, good. So then on the 10th, we're going to do, would everyone like to do 7 p.m. again, or do people want to do a little earlier? Sometimes we move up to 6 p.m. for these one-off meetings. Does anyone have a feeling about that? Going once, going twice.
6.
Okay, let's stick to the normal hours. We'll do 7 on the 10th. And this will be the only topic for this.
So I know you can't see it, but James is raising his hand.
Oh, yeah, I thought he was frozen. Sorry, you were just very patient. All right, give me a second. Let me just type this in. Okay, good. All right, so that's all settled up. Now, let's see. Now would be the opportunity, James, for yourself and anybody else, any of the abutters that want to have a quick say. I would just request that you try to keep it jurisdictional, if you don't mind. Okay, great. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, Jim Stewart, 22 Old Point Road. I wrote up some comments, and I know other abutters did. As long as we know they can be heard later, I think we're comfortable with that. They deal with a lot of the topics about the easements, the drainage, a variety of things about the plan and whether we can count on it or not. So I won't go through the whole thing, but we did want to ask, if we're going to have this continued, that we get a site visit, we can submit these comments later in the spirit of time tonight. And that also that we have, sounds like implicitly we're going to have the right to have Larry and Mary complete their written response to what we received only yesterday on Hughes paper, which was the narrative addendum, because we want to get that on the record as well. So I assume with this continuance and site walk, we'll have that opportunity. And also to give our comments at some future meeting, because we each have short statements that we want to read to the commission.
Okay. Yeah. If you don't mind waiting, that'd be helpful. Just because I don't want to try to respect the other projects that are still on the to-do list this evening. But if we need to, we will certainly keep the project going in this separated format, so that we don't have the time crunch of everybody behind us.
Right.
And hopefully that'll let everybody speak over a course of meetings. Yeah, Ben.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do just want to, it's something that we've talked about a fair bit as a commission around these meetings, is that Mr. Stewart's point about timeliness of submittals is really timely. As a commissioner, I don't appreciate getting things 12 to 24 hours ahead of time either. And so I think given the nature of this project, it would be great if all parties would submit things of, 72 hours in advance, or, I guess really if you want them in for a Tuesday meeting, get them in on Thursday to Bill Holt on Thursday, so that everybody has the proper amount of time to review them, so that we can do our due diligence heading into the meeting. I would certainly appreciate that. And in general, on any project, I would appreciate that.
I agree on that.
Well, good. You'll be happy to know Bill Holt and I have been talking about that, and we'll certainly bring that up when we have something that we feel can be made official. However, for the moment, I see Mr. Romano has his hand up in the air. Let's unmute him. And again, if you could just keep it sort of jurisdictional, that would be appreciated.
Yes, thank you. Am I coming across okay?
You're great.
Okay. I'm Alan Romano. I own 3916 T Street. My property is the one that's going to be impacted the most by these easements that are going to basically destroy the side of my yard. As Mr. Stewart, I prepared a list of things I wanted to speak about, but due to the time constraints here, I won't bother you all with that at this point. Reserve the right to maybe bring it up at the meeting next week. One thing that I've heard here tonight that's disturbing to me is people are saying if the center breaches, that there's no other way to get out of here. 4th Street and 6th Street both circumvent the center, and they've been used for years to get in and out of here. So that statement and that excuse that we need this because there's no other way doesn't really hold any water. So that I just wanted to put across. And the only other thing is they're planning on taking out massive trees. They're taking out 30-foot high mature trees, and they're going to replant them with what? That's going to survive out here. So that's just something to think about. And thank you for at least letting me get that off my chest.
Great. I appreciate the brevity. And I see Mr. Stewart, you'd like to add one more comment. So
Just real quick, one of the other important things is for the chief to assess whether he cares or not, whether it's in this location or a block over on a recommended alternative. Because we haven't heard, besides Chief Riley saying to me a while back, I don't really care if it's one block this way or that way, as long as I can get out to the northern part of the island. So I think maybe we should invite him to look at the alternative as well. And he might say, I'm fine with it from an emergency management perspective. But I think we're going to need him to weigh in as well. That's it. Thank you.
thank you. Yes, and I think we're going to have everybody offering opinions at some point. So I'm not too worried about leaving anybody out at the moment. Okay, that being said, it sounds like everybody's got a little bit of homework to do. So who would like to offer a motion to officially continue this until the 10th?
You have one more. Mr. Mangan would like to make a comment.
Sorry, I missed you. Go ahead.
Yes, to be unmuted by Gretchen.
Sure. Am I unmuted, I take it?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Thank you. One thing that was mentioned by Mary were some comments that were made probably in excess of 10 years ago by DEP about how restrictions would need to be in place to stop any frontage being used as an excuse for development on the island. And those would have to be in perpetuity, as I understand it. And whether if this project were to go through, I'd be really concerned if there weren't restrictions that would be in place forever to stop development as a result of frontage being created. And since these are 10 years old, and since they still may be in effect, I would hope that the Conservation Commission would be able to get legal guidance on how those would be binding conditions that the commission could put in place. As many of you know, development on the island as a result of the water and sewer project has been a longstanding concern of mine. And I can imagine that this project and its proposal to create new frontage could lead to further development, which in my mind is a non-starter. So that's something I perhaps ask the Concom to investigate with legal counsel to make sure you can prohibit development. And maybe that's something for the planning board as well. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Mr.
Sure,
Chair,
thanks.
Mr. Chair.
Who I hear the voice. I don't see the.
Lisa Mead. I just
Oh,
want to.
there you are.
May I please just briefly address Steve's comments, because I think it's a really valid concern, and we've certainly looked at it. So as to the property, most of which is owned by the town, certainly you have the ability to put in those restrictions. There's only additional frontage provided to one private parcel, which of course does not have a candy cane, but which has merged with adjacent land owned by the same party that has frontage on Hutchins. So it's not developable, even if they attempted to divide it up because of course it would be illegal lots then. So I think you raise a good point, sure. But as to the town land, we can take care of that without question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify for everybody that regardless of, what could or couldn't happen with that, that's, outside of our jurisdiction. And I know everybody wants to sort of have their say about this project. And so, I'm okay having these sort of issues that we have no bearing on come up for the moment. But hopefully for the following meetings after this, we can try to sort of stay in the lane of the Concom and not, get too far off track legally speaking and regulatorily speaking. But that being said, I would love to have a motion to move on. Anybody wanna offer one?
I move to continue this to a hearing on November 10th.
Seconded.
Thank you. Great. All right, roll call. Benjamin.
Yes.
Thank you. Bill.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Yes.
And Peter.
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm also voting in the affirmative.
Mr. Chair, just from formality's sake, I don't believe there was a time provided on that motion. So if you could reiterate, it's November 10th at 7 p.m.
Yes, thank you. It is November 10th at 7.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I move
All right, well,
to continue this hearing. Do I need to make a new motion? Would you like me to make a motion, Chairman?
Sorry about the formality, but yes.
I move.
It's okay. Who's going to re-second?
Bill,
Second, great. All right, re-roll call. Benjamin.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Kevin. Kevin went to get a drink. Peter. And I'm going to vote in the affirmative. And even if Kevin changed his mind, we outvoted him. All right, so 7 o'clock on the 10th.
Very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
See you on the 2nd.
All right, what do we have next? That's on the agenda. Next, we have David Manti, 0 Pine Island Road, map R30, lot 5, DEP number 0501330. A continued NOI to construct a dock/pier, ramp, and floating dock within Salt Marsh Resource Area and ACEC. Bill Holt. What's the update? We lost.
Hearing, can you hear me?
There you are. Yeah, your video went.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
So, Bill, what's going on with that?
Okay. Mr. Manti has asked that we continue the hearing until the next meeting. So I don't know if that's something that.
I move to continue the hearing until November 10th at 7 p.m. Or are we doing?
No.
Yep. Wait. We're doing this all as a special meeting. So when's the next meeting after the 10th?
It would be the
Hold on.
24th, actually.
Yep, 24th.
Great.
I move to continue the hearing till the 24th at 7 p.m.
Second.
Thank you. All right, roll call. Benjamin.
Yes.
Bill Lord.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Kevin.
I technically didn't hear this one because I had to run to the bathroom. So we have a quorum without me. So I'll just abstain.
Peter.
Yes.
And myself, yes. We're just kicking a can down the road. That's all. All right, great. So Next thing on the agenda, we have Justin Leonard at 3 Southern Boulevard, DEP number 050 TBD, a continued NOI to restore an existing small parking area. Bill Holt.
And Mr. Leonard has also asked to continue this until the 24th, the next meeting. We were unable to connect. He worked until 4 o'clock. So I called a couple of times. We were unable to connect to meet to discuss the restoration of the area. I am meeting him tomorrow at 4:30 to go over that. So hopefully we'll have a plan for the 24th, and we'd like to continue it until then.
Okay.
Move to continue until the 24th.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Peter. All right, roll call. Benjamin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Yes. Captain?
Yes.
And Peter?
Yes.
And I also am voting affirmatively. Next thing we have is Joseph Bavaro at 3 Newburyport Turnpike, DEP number 050-1336, a continued NOI to construct a residential/retail building with parking area. All right.
I think the applicant's engineer is here. TJ Melvin, I think.
Okay. So, Mr. Melvin, are you there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Oh, great. All right. So what's the update?
So since the last meeting we had at the end of September, we revised the stormwater calculations to include the Cornell runoff rainfall data. And then to provide the 44% pre-treatment, we have removed the curb inlet and sediment forebay. And instead, we are now proposing a trench drain that will drain into a contact CDS unit to achieve the pre-treatment and then discharge to the infiltration area. One of the other concerns at the previous hearing was the purpose of the head wall on the site. And based on our investigations, we don't see any pipes on the site, and looking back through record plans, we don't see any connections to it. It may have had a connection at one point, but at this point, it doesn't appear there's any pipe leaving that head wall. And that's really the majority of the changes that we've made since the last time we were in front of the commission.
Okay. Bill Holt, any new observations, comments from your end?
I did review the drainage calculations provided, and they did update those as we requested, and they seem appropriate. He also did handle the TSS removal prior to going into the infiltration area. He also provided the detail of the infiltration area depicting the groundwater elevations relationship to the bottom of the bed, which I think the EPA asked for in their comments, and that seems to be adequate. I don't have any issues with the proposed drainage. It seems to be appropriate and will function according to the stormwater management regulations. So I have no other issues with the project unless the commission has any questions or concerns at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. All right, let's go around the horn. Ben, anything on your mind? Ben?
Come back around to me, please.
Okay. Daniel?
I got no questions right now.
Okay. Bill?
I have no
Bill
questions at this time.
Okay. Kevin?
Nope, no questions.
And Peter?
This time, no questions.
Okay. I do have a little bit of a question, and it may very well be in one of the very long documents that I don't feel like I got to, study up on properly. But in one of the plan sets, it shows where the dumpsters are going to go.
Yep.
And what plan says that?
That's
plan
page 3 of 8.
7. Yeah, here we go. I think I found it. And, you know, this might be an overly simple question, but it doesn't seem to say what would happen with any stormwater that falls out of the dumpsters. Would that just run overland towards the pond, or would that be filtered toward the infiltration system? You know, I'm not seeing that detail.
Yep. So if you go to sheet, I can actually pop it up on the screen if it's easier, but I believe it's sheet 5, sheet 4. You'll see the spot grades in the dumpster area.
Yeah, pull that up on screen.
Okay.
And then everyone will see that and understand.
Oh, I have to make him a co-host. I'm sorry. Hold on one second.
Is TJ gonna do that, or do you want me to try to do that?
Let TJ do it. That's okay.
TJ, are you under TJ or are you under your phone?
No, I'm under TJ Melvin.
Okay, hold on. I can't find you. Okay, gotcha. Okay, you're good.
So this section right here shows the spot grades, and that whole dumpster area pitching back towards Newburyport Turnpike, and then ultimately will drain around through here, through the 20 contour into this trench drain and get treated before the stormwater management system.
Okay. And then just to follow that line of thought, what happens to the water that ends up in the underground parking?
So it's intended to pitch all back towards that trench drain. So ideally, you know, it's mostly just going to be a minor runoff off of the car. Anything that parks that, you know, pulls in during the storm, but this whole area is pitching towards that trench drain.
Okay. And then, again, this is my weak spot in this kind of thing, but how big is that drain? I mean, that looks like a lot of parking lot that drain is responsible for.
Yeah, it's 10 feet by, I believe it's like 6 or 7 inches wide. We actually ran the calculations. I believe they were in the stormwater report. If not, I can send them off. Contec is the manufacturer that makes the separator, and they also make this drain. It's kind of a modified corrugated metal pipe with a welded on trench that goes up to the surface. And their engineer and I also both ran the calculations to determine that it would be able to handle the flow and get everything into there.
Okay. Okay. Like I said, this is one of my weaker aspects of reviewing this kind of thing. So I appreciate you walking me through this.
Yeah, no problem.
The other detail I was curious about. So this detention basin, and forgive me if I missed some small print somewhere. What is in here? I didn't see like a planting or vegetation kind of explainer.
So it's just supposed to be loam and seed. Just
Okay.
a typical grass basin. Let's see. Yeah, so you can kind of just see it in that cut section I have on the screen there.
Okay. Is there, in the loam and seed, is there, what kind of seed? I mean, are we talking just like grass, or are we talking like wetland plants, or is there, some spec there?
Typically more of a grass than plants is what we'll propose, because typically we want to mow it and, rake out any debris that falls in there or makes its way into the system. So we're not proposing any wetland plants, or we don't want it overgrown, just, kind of a mowed twice annually type of deal.
Okay. So then just to sort of bring it back to first principles, what is the purpose of this basin? Is it to catch the garbage, or is it to sort of treat the water?
So it is to collect the stormwater and detain it so we're not increasing any peak runoff from the site. At the same time, provide recharge back into the ground to accommodate for all the impervious area on site. And as far as stuff getting through, I mean, you'll have leaves that might blow in, that type of smaller materials that will be cleaned up. The separators do a pretty good job of removing a lot of the sands before they reach the system. So it's really not trash, more leaves and any debris that may blow in there that will just be raked out.
Okay. Yeah, my mind is going, something to more towards like a rain garden type aesthetic, just because you're going to be taking all of that, from the parking lot and then putting it into that pond that presumably, is, surrounded by development and stressors, and if there was a way to increase the effectiveness of the basin with a rain garden type approach, I think that would be an interesting detail maybe to look into. But as Bill was saying, it appears that the specs for the water are being met. That would just arguably be a cherry on top, perhaps might be the way to put it.
Yeah,
but
let me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I want to make sure don't forget about Ben, and I want to check back in with Ben and see what's on his mind. But if you want to address the rain garden idea, feel free.
Yeah, my only concern would be is a lot of the times for the rain gardens that they require a certain amount of soil media to be brought in, and where we are trying to infiltrate. I know typically rain gardens, I think they can be used for infiltration, but I don't think they provide the same infiltration rate as this would. I could be wrong. I can double check the stormwater handbook, but that would just be my only concern with that.
Okay. I mean, I think for the size of the basin you're talking about, there's probably a happy medium somewhere in there. And I'm just making the broad assumption that, if a rain garden can, when they put them down the strip in the middle of the big parking lots, for like the Target or the grocery store or whatever, if they can handle that, they ought to, be able to handle this. But again, maybe that's an idea we can, revisit or come back to or get Bill's input on. But Benjamin, do you want to ask any questions or bring up anything?
I just think that whatever can be done, I don't have any specific ideas like you do, but I just think that given the amount of the project that's occurring within the 100-foot buffer, whatever the project applicants can do to mitigate or improve all their stormwater detention and treatment, the better. Just given the I mean, I know that the site is a brownfield, and so they have to contend with that, and also says something about the ecological value, perhaps, of the land that the project's going to be created on. But the wetland is what we're trying to protect. So whatever we can do to protect that wetland that's there, I would appreciate seeing be done.
Great. So Bill Holt, what do you know about the infiltration rates that are sometimes associated with rain gardens?
Well, I think I'd have to check also with the stormwater management guidelines. I believe you do get infiltration with rain gardens, but I think, like TJ said, the media thickness is a little different. And it's a mixture of, soil types that you have to put in the bottom of the bed itself, the bottom of the basin. So I can double check to see if, I know he's relying mostly on infiltration to mitigate the runoff rates. So think that's key to his design right now.
Yeah, and it's one of the requirements to just to be able to meet the required recharge volume using a quicker rate for that size pond will help us reach that too.
Yeah. So TJ, just to sort of echo back some of Ben's point, the interesting conundrum with this site, obviously being a brownfield, it's not exactly serving much ecological value at the moment. But because the whole project, just about half of it, 3/4 of it, is within the buffer lines, if there was a way to sort of reintroduce some ecological value to the site that also would dovetail with the infiltration and, cleaning up the water and dealing with that particular technical aspect, I feel like that might be a nice detail that, if you wouldn't mind checking in on that and seeing how it fits with some of your other plans and ideas, that might be nice.
Yeah, I guess I would just have a question too. If we can kind of blend the two and, provide extra planting, maybe not the entire thing be rain guards, but if we could do pockets here and there, just kind of break it up from just being grass right to the wetland. I'm not sure if that's something that would work for you guys as well.
Yeah, TJ, I was just thinking exactly that. I'm assuming, just looking at the plan, that, like the sheet you have up right now, that northern half where you had the dumpsters, that whole area around the dumpsters, like, rather than have that just be lawn that runs down to the wetland, if you could do something more creative there that's going to absorb water coming off of everything and treat stuff and slow it down and infiltrate, then that would be, I think, a bonus,
Yeah, so up where these two test pits are in this area.
Yeah, and even, that whole northern border of the wetland there, whatever you can do to.
Yeah, because a lot of this actually isn't part of the basin, so we could definitely add some additional plantings there.
Yeah, something that's going to provide, just a more robust buffer than grass would.
Yep.
Yeah, and actually, to echo Ben's comments a little bit, if you do look into the rain garden idea, that might make your site plan a little more plastic, because if you address some of the runoff in smaller doses with smaller rain gardens, if it's appealing, for the project to shrink the footprint of the basin, I think you would have reason to do so, by integrating the rain gardens into the landscape or landscaping, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, I'm certainly open to whatever particular details, you want to play with on that, but I do think it might be helpful.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So then, in a manner of speaking, then, does that mean we're done with this particular detail? Any other conversation points anybody wants to address? Do we see any hands in the audience? Where's my? Oh.
Stop sharing.
There we go. That's better.
I don't see anyone raising their hand.
Yeah, I don't see anyone.
I don't see anything. Nobody's waving. All right, great. Well then, in that case, what did we say? We're doing the 24th is the next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah. So is that okay with you, TJ?
Yeah. We'll work on trying to get some additional plantings there and incorporate the rain garden as much as we can and get everything back as quickly as possible.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, then let's have a motion for 7 p.m. on the 24th.
Move to continue this hearing to 7 p.m. on the 24th of November. November.
Second.
I think I heard Bill Lord, you seconded. I think I heard that.
Seconded.
Great. All right. Roll call. Benjamin.
Yes.
Bill Lord.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
And Peter.
Yes.
And I will also vote in the affirmative. All right, great. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you.
All right, let's see, what do we have next? Callie Meehan and Sean Lawless at 43 Central Street, DP number 050 TBD, an NOI to construct an addition to an existing single-family home within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. All right, who's ringing?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but I can also hear somebody else's phone ringing.
Somebody's phone? Yeah. Not mine.
Who is that?
I'm Michael Seacamp, Environmental Consultant, and I'm representing Sean Lawless and Kaylee Meehan. And it's a 19 by 20 addition proposed in this property. Did the delineation of the wetlands in June. They go all along the driveway and then kind of widens out as you get back to the property. The house is fairly close to the lot line on the right side. You see on the plan. We're constrained as to the location of this addition because behind at the rear of the left side of the house is the septic system. So it needs to bump out to the left. It's an area of lawn. There will be there's no trees proposed to be taken down for this addition. And we show erosion control on the plan. With regard to DEP, I don't know why they don't have why they haven't issued a file number yet. The filing fee to the state cleared on October 5th. So there we have it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Bill Lord, or Bill Holt, sorry, you wanna walk us through anything from your perspective?
Yeah, I'm going to try to share my screen and show you the plan real quick. I know Mike didn't have it up, I don't believe. Can you see that picture?
No
Almost.
picture, Bill. There you go.
There it is, Bill. Yep.
All right. So I guess what Mike was talking about was the 19 by 24 addition on the left side of the house. As you can see, the right side is only 14 feet from the property line to the dwelling, and a deck and a pool in the back. This manhole is a septic tank, and the leach system is in this area here, so they really can't add to the back of the property, can't add to the right. Adding to the front would be the same setbacks as they're proposing. So right now, the corner of the addition, am I still on? Can you hear
No,
me?
lost it.
Lost me. You can hear me though, right?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
So the right left-hand corner of the addition is 25 feet from the wetland boundary. It is all inside of a lawn area. There's no trees to be taken down for the actual addition itself. The tree line appears to be just about 20 feet from the boundary line of the wetland. So there's about 5 feet around the left-hand side of the house, a proposed addition. So I guess, it's close, but it's the only place they have to add on. So I guess my issue is they're going to install a erosion control, looks like about 10 feet from the proposed addition. I don't see any other option as far as addition goes. So the only other thing I might add is if they would consider doing a roof runoff infiltrator for the new addition to try to mitigate some of the runoff coming off that. There's room in the front. They could probably install a couple of infiltrator units and connect the gutters from the new roof into that. It would help address some of the runoff. That's about the only thing I can see that would maybe improve the plan a little. So I'll hand it back to the commission to discuss.
Okay, thank you. As I'm looking at this, two questions come to mind. One has to do with the image that was shared just before the screen cut out. Would this change the risk of trees? You know, it looked like while the addition would go in on lawn, it would kind of go under some rather large trees. And, you know, if we were to allow this, would this also sort of have a negative impact on the trees that are growing out of the wetland? That was just a quick glimpse I saw, so I didn't really get a good idea of what that meant. And then the other thing would be looking at the plan. It looks like the long edge is the one getting close to the wetland, and perhaps it doesn't matter since it's all lawn. But would it matter if the addition was shifted from being a 19 by 24 to a 24 by 19 and just sort of going 90 degrees? You know, that'd be, you know, it'd be 5 feet worth of extra buffer for whatever that's worth.
I think
those would be my two.
I think the problem there would be then you would not be meeting the maximum distance you need to be from the septic system, because it would make it go further out the back.
Okay.
And with regard to the tree in the wetland, they're 20 feet away. There's 20 feet of tree line in the wetland and the edge of the tree line at the lawn. So if a tree was a problem there, it would be in the buffer zone, not in the wetland. I guess that's the way I'd put it.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So let's see. What else? Anybody else have any comments? Benjamin?
Yeah, my concern is the same as yours, Brian, and I'm not really satisfied with it yet. If I'm reading the plan set in that picture right, it looks like the 24 feet would bring it straight to the edge of the lawn and to the tree line. Is that correct, Mr. Seecamp?
No, there'd still be more. There still would be like 5 feet of lawn before you got to the tree line.
Between the tree line and the new construction.
Correct. Yeah, there's more lawn would still be in between.
I agree. It'd be about 5 feet.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, I think every homeowner knows that they don't like having trees that close to their house. And what I end up foreseeing is that if I walk back there in 10 years, those trees are going to be pushed back. That tree line's going to be pushed back from the addition. I recognize that outside of reducing the square footage of the addition, which I would prefer, I'd like to see it pushed back further than further from the 25-foot buffer that it's currently proposed to be right now. But I also appreciate that's a big ask because it reduces the square footage of the addition.
All right. So then, Bill Lord.
No, I don't have any comments at this time.
Okay. Daniel.
I'm good.
Kevin.
I have no additional comments, but I kind of agree with Ben with what he was saying.
Okay. And Peter.
No, I don't have any comments either. Yeah.
Okay. So then, Bill Holt, do you think you could speak to that question of the septic and distance and setbacks and such?
Yeah, Mike is correct. The tank has to be 10 feet from the foundation wall. I cannot speak as to whether or not the tank could be moved as part of the construction. I'd have to see the design plan, which I don't have a copy of. If they can get a copy of that and take a look at that, they may be able to move the tank. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it's doable. To lift it up or put a new one in further away to keep it 10 feet from the proposed addition if they slide it back a little to keep the 25 feet or a little more than 25 feet. They'd have to look at that. I can't speak as to whether they can do it or not. but they can't move it back if they leave the tank where it is. Put it that way.
Right. And then just looking at the plans a little bit more, one follow-up question, which may very well be kind of silly. There's no option for, they want this addition as part of their house. This isn't something that could be a separate structure that maybe could be moved further back on the lot into a different location that would work. This isn't like an in-law apartment that maybe separating it, would be a worthwhile.
I don't think that would be
Well, or you could move the deck. I mean, that's the other alternative, is to have it go off the north face of the house and either lose or rebuild the deck off of some of the addition.
Yeah, that's a fair question. Is that something in the cards to swap one structure with the other one?
Are you asking me?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Mike, is that something that was ever looked at?
It just seems like, what are we gaining? I mean, this is not going to, the use of the property isn't going to change. You're going to have a structure closer to the wetland. It's not going to have a negative effect on the wetland, in my opinion. I understand what Mr. Holt had brought up earlier about infiltration of roof runoff. And that could be accomplished with trench drains or some infiltrators if we went with gutters and downspouts. But that would be a fairly simple solution, I think. And other than runoff, which would be minimal, I don't think any other threat to the wetland with the current design.
Right. I tend to agree with you about the current design, but I think what Ben and myself and Kevin are thinking more has, you might think of it as creep. If you move a little bit and then the trees, you get those, and that creeping of development towards the wetland when you're this close is an easy thing to do, and not not intentionally, not with bad intentions. It's just the way things go sometimes.
Sure. I understand. Yeah.
Right. But I acknowledge and understand that this is pretty boxed in, and that no matter what we do, it's it's stuck. There's wetlands on the whole everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, move the septic tank. That's a big job to move. To do away with the deck and the pool. I mean, that's a big job. I think this is probably a minimal impact to the property itself, and any other alternative greater impact to the property itself. And the whole property is within a 100-foot buffer zone, just about.
Yeah, and it's replacing lawn, and lawn is not exactly natural. All right, well, what does the board want to do?
Can we get a motion to?
He broke up there. I didn't hear what Mr. Seekamp said.
Can we get a motion to approve the project?
With conditions for the drainage?
Yeah, and then, and we would follow up with either infiltration chambers or chambers.
Is there any other conditions? Is there any other conditions the board wants to entertain? I'm fine with that. But before I make a motion, I was going to see if there's anybody else who wanted to add anything on outside of the
not knowing, the ground out there, my concern would have to do with just making sure that the water, that it's the same stuff. If there's an opportunity to, like a rain garden, again, if there's anything like that might be useful. But looking at the slope of the land, I can't read the slope, but is there any concern about runoff whatever. I'm drifting.
Yeah, I think a trench drain or infiltration chamber would, one or the other would work. Rain garden, I think the slope is a little bit steep, and it would require a bit of grading. So I keep it tight up against the house and have it infiltrate right there. The soil is pretty suitable for infiltration from what I was able to determine when I was out there.
Did anybody talk about, or did I miss in any of the design plans, what happens to the runoff from the existing roof? Is that something we can catch and add into this infiltration? Is that guttered, or is it just running off to the ground? Or
I don't know if Mr. Lawless is with us now. He would be able to answer that question if he was. I know he was going to tune in, but
was here earlier.
I'm not sure if he was able to.
I believe I was out there. I believe there are gutters on the main portion of the house. I'm not sure. The garage to the right, I'm not sure if there's any gutters on that portion of the house, but on the main body of the house, there was gutters on the back side and front side, I believe, and then the lead is coming down on the corners. They may be able to tie those in. They'd have to do the calculations to see how many infiltrators they need for that purpose. But
yeah, I think in America, if they're going to solve that problem for half the house, let's talk about solving the problem for the whole house.
Yeah, we could do the same thing, either trench drains or infiltration chambers for the whole house.
John has his hand up. He wants to speak.
Yeah, is he unmuted?
He is unmuted. Go ahead, Sean.
All right, hey Sean, go for it.
Sean? Sean, are you there? He's unmuted. I don't know.
All right.
I have a question while we try and figure that out that I hadn't really thought about, because maybe I'm just having trouble with the plans. The erosion, does the erosion control that's shown on the map set go into the woods, or is that following the tree line?
Follows the tree line.
Follows the tree line. Okay. Thank you.
There? His hand's still raised. I don't know. He's not there.
Well, Sean, if you can hear us, we're sorry. We can't hear you.
Can you use the chat function? Or do we not have a chat function enabled?
Let's see. No chat function on here. Oh.
Well, I think I can speak for Sean with regard to the infiltration. I highly recommend it on any, whether you use downspouts or a drip edge. It works good. I did not notice when I was out there any obvious erosion channels from the downspouts. But you can always improve things. Whether it's a trench filled with crushed stone along the driveway or something like that, and we could come up with a plan for that.
Yeah, I think that would make this easier. We understand your pinch, but it's like you said, if there's a way to take advantage of the situation and improve the drainage, that'd be appreciated.
Okay.
All right. So then, do you want to do this, Mike, as a set of conditions and build them out that way, or do you want to bring the plan back? Does the board have a preference? Do you want to see this again if he redraws anything, or are you happy to let Bill Holt just condition it?
I'd be happy with the condition and have Bill Holt follow up.
Okay. All right. So
I have no problem working with the applicant and the consultant to get that done. So
Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
Motion to approve with conditions as directed.
Second.
Second. All right. Thank you. Roll call. Benjamin,
Yes.
Bill Lord,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Peter. Peter?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I will also vote in the affirmative. All right, great. Thank you, Mike, for tolerating our nitpicking. And I'll look forward to hearing from Bill Holt that, you guys put together some lovely conditions and, have some lovely drainage.
Okay, we'll work on it.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move on. What do we have next? Dale Myers of Alliance Missouri LLC at 75 Boston Road, DEP number 050 to be determined, an NOI to install solar panels, security fences, roadway improvements, drainage, and associated utilities within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands. All right, do we have Mr. Myers?
Yeah, I'm here. I'll turn it over to Maureen from Norse Environmental, who's our consultant on the project and follow the NOI.
Hi, so
Okay.
good evening. Maureen Harold, Norse Environmental. Dale Myers is here as well, and he is a solar engineer expert. If possible, could I bring in the plan for the commission?
Yeah, you're all set to share your screen, Maureen.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so this is located at the Newberry landfill. And what we'd like to do is install 1,456 solar panels. So if you can see my screen, everything that's colored in green, those are the wetlands. So we have some bordering vegetated wetlands here. The 100-foot buffer zone is shown in yellow. On the, let's see, on the westerly side, which is this side here, we're proposing 448 solar panels. And on the easterly side, we're proposing 1,008. The entire site is 26.9 acres. The wetland itself is very well defined throughout most. It's pretty much at the toe of slope. Don't know if the commission has had an opportunity to go out. These other wetlands along Boston Road, they're essentially drainage ditches that hold some wetland vegetation itself. We're incorporating erosion controls. We're incorporating construction entrance, and open it up to the commission for any questions. Whoops.
All right, that was quick. Nothing strikes me right away, but let's go around the horn and see what everybody else has. Benjamin? Ben?
I don't have anything right at this moment. Everything looks like it's already more or less in a disturbed state there anyways. And, I guess the one thing, the road on the southern end is not new. There's already something there. So I'm trying to catch up a little bit.
Correct. So there's already an access road that comes along like this, down through here, comes around like, there's a gravel drive that comes along like that.
This is Eric with Ace Solar. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the existing, this is Eric with Ace Solar. Nice to meet you all. But the existing conditions of the land, cap landfill, regulated under Mass DEP solid waste regulations, and so it's the slides where we're building is all pre-developed land, and pre-developed and pre-disturbed land, right? And so even within the 100-foot wetlands, that landfill will have to be continually maintained because of its regulations under the solid waste regulations. So we wouldn't be disturbing anything that is not currently a landfill and already disturbed.
Yeah, I mean, I want to hear what the rest of the commission has to say, but I'm largely view this as a great place to make power. So anyways, move on from there.
Okay, let's move on then. Bill?
This is a membrane covered dump, right? With dirt over the membrane.
Correct.
How deep do the support posts go to hold up that many panels? Is it going to interfere, or is it going to slide off the mountain?
Yeah, so this is Eric again with Ace Solar. So the our system is a non-penetrating ballasted system. So we've built these systems across Massachusetts through the DEP and with their guidelines and guidance. We will have to go back to we are going in the process of going to the DEP to get what's called a post-closure use permit. It's under CMR 310-1900, and it allows for reuse of landfills. And so we have to, there's been already been engineered so that the landfill membrane will not be disturbed. That's a 60 mil geotextile membrane. It's an FML liner, flexible membrane liner. And it's buried by about 2 to 2.5 feet, depending on the area, with material. So it's an impervious landfill cap now, and between the DEP and our engineering, it will maintain impervious.
Thank you. Who benefits from the electricity generated?
The town is a direct benefactor of it through form of a lease payment and a net metering credit agreement, which is sort of like a PPA. Has a different name though. It's just because the power generations are. So the town is a beneficiary.
Thank you.
Okay, if you're all set, Bill, we'll move on to Daniel.
Just a couple of questions. I don't know if they are, in fact, within our jurisdictional area, but I looked pretty carefully to see how the panels were anchored. I mean, they're basically, that whole hillside looks like it's covered with pretty heavy stone. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, gravel will be placed down underneath the ballast blocks on the hillside. That is correct. I don't want to say the whole hillside, but yes.
It's pretty substantial. I think my question related to that is, how does that impact how the grass surface is maintained? I mean, it seems like if you have gravel, even if it, you may have stuff growing up through it, then you can't mow it. I'm just sort of curious how that aspect of things is handled.
Yeah, so where we put the gravel, there may not be growth after that, but the purpose of the gravel is to maintain that slope. And slope stability calculations have been completed. They're not part of this application. They are part of the DEP post-closure use application. So that's all part of the slope stability calculations that occur to ensure that the integrity of that landfill liner is maintained, and to make sure that the landfill itself, which again, there's grass there, but it's a man-made structure. The grass is there to perform a job of hydrotranspiration, and that the same thing will still occur with the gravel, right? And so the water will be able to seep down into the sand drainage layer, which is underneath, and will be able to seep out off of the landfill and not penetrate the landfill cap. And so that's been designed specifically for that.
I mean, it sounds like your company has been involved in other landfill solar projects. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we've done probably 50 throughout the state of Massachusetts.
You probably know what you're doing.
Yeah, before I was a PV engineer, I was a solid waste engineer. And actually our solid waste consultant, Weston and Sampson, is familiar with this landfill. They've done work on it in the past, and they're the ones who are doing the final. The DEP requires third-party engineering oversight. So you have to hire a company to ensure that you maintain the integrity of the landfill. And Weston and Sampson will be doing that for us.
Okay. Just one more brief question on the wetland in between the two mounds. I seem to recall that was some sort of, that was constructed as some sort of stormwater management area.
Yeah, in the original DEP filing, as part of the, actually almost all of these wetland areas were man-made structures as part of the as part of the landfill cap initial construction.
Right. I was never quite clear on what the maintenance for that area was. I mean, presumably it might have, silt in and it needs some sort of treatment. It's not really your thing with this project, but I do kind of wonder if that's been managed correctly.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, Daniel. I will say that we checked the landfill. So the landfill has layers, and it's not supposed to allow water into the trash, essentially, right? That's what those layers are there to do. And so when water hits the cap, there's a sand drainage layer. And so we did test the sand drainage layer to make sure that it was working properly and water could flow through it. That's a very permeable layer to allow water to flow through it. This is underground, essentially under the grass. And we know that that layer is working fine. So landfill construction as is functioning. And so we feel confident. I would tend to agree that those are probably, need to be mucked out or not, but it's not quite within our scope. And I'll say that the landfill drainage systems are still functioning as designed, and we had to test that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dan. So let's move on. Kevin, what's on your mind?
I have no further questions. I think it's a cool project. I'm actually excited for it.
Great. Peter.
Plain seen this, and it's great use of a landfill. It'll be beneficial to the town, and I'm just curious if Bill Holt has any questions or comments.
Well, as for myself, I don't have anything jurisdictional to say about it. I agree that, put it to use. My one non-jurisdictional question is part of the discussion, or even part of the options, to put in anything like a battery and a car charger, over at the either for municipal use or for public use. Was that ever brought up, or is this strictly straight into the power grid?
Yeah, this is straight into the power grid, unfortunately, and it's just the way that the incentive program within Massachusetts works. These want to be third-party owned, where a beneficiary of the town goes to the town, but there's power has to go out to the grid to get the credit, and there's no way to really do that. It was also procured under a certain way under the town and the state procurement law, so I can't just add one, unfortunately. But they're a great idea, and we support them, and we build them everywhere. So
that's too bad, but better something than nothing. All right. Well, then, Bill Holt, if you want to answer Peter's question, I think
I do have just a couple of comments that I'll bring up. If I can share my screen, I'll bring up a plan again and kind of go over a couple of things that I think we would have the environmental consultant address potentially.
Okay.
I think I need to be allowed to screen share, Gretchen.
Okay, let's see. Where are you? Hold on, we're almost there. Okay, try that, Bill. There we go.
I just have a couple of comments. I believe there may be a riverfront area on the property. I think if I read the plans correctly and look at the GIS. I believe the river comes through here and then crosses over the river up here. So this is probably bank on the little river, which would make a riverfront area of 100 and 200 foot somewhere into the property, at least up in this northerly corner. I think that should be looked at and at least added to plans. It probably doesn't affect what you're doing in terms of the actual solar panels. It's more to do with, I think, the storage areas and material areas that you have shown. Those may need to be located outside the 100-foot riverfront area if it is actually, in fact, the riverfront. I don't know if Maureen can answer that. I think that is part of the river and is a culvert or a crossing under the railroad bridge.
No, I think you're right, Bill. We can certainly add that to the plan. It's not a problem.
Yeah, I think that it wouldn't affect much, but I think it might affect, let me go to the other sheets. I believe on this sheet here, you have a storage area here and here that might technically be in the 100-foot riverfront area that you may need to relocate slightly. I also wonder if these material and equipment stockpiles, are those for the solar panels and all the equipment that's being put in here, or those for like storage of soil or other type materials that you're going to be using to put down the stone and whatnot? Because you don't show any erosion control around those. I think they should have some erosion control around during the process. This might need to be moved, at least be located somewhere over in here, if it's possible. I'm not sure exactly where you want to put it, but I think it needs to be relocated if that is a riverfront. So that's one thing. The other thing I noticed is that you don't show the erosion control on these two sheets C203 and 204. And I don't think the erosion control covers a little bit of this grading here. I think you have the erosion control kind of cutting up around that. So you probably relocate it to include that. I think you just need to take a look at the erosion control and maybe add it to these sheets to see how it plays out with the some of the other grading you have going on and some of the other work you have going on. I did also notice that on the B series flags, it's not really too relevant, but there are some repeated numbers. I don't know if they're just labeled wrong on the plan or if they're actual repeated numbers in the field. I know it happens sometimes, but just curious if the numbers are just mislabeled on, I think it's the B series, mostly from like B1 to B20.
Yeah, you know, when you start getting tired, the numbers just repeat. So
a lot of flags out there.
It's probably our error. I'm sure it's located correctly and it's labeled correctly. I'm sure it's our error.
I just think those couple of things just to be looked at. Other than that, I don't really have any other issues. Looks like a pretty decent project. I'd be interested to see it as it moves along. So I don't know if those can be edited. I also know you have a DP number for this. You don't have a DP number yet, so we can close the hearing. Not if it's the commission's wish, but I don't think we can issue a notice of conditions yet, so we have a number from DEP, and we might want to be able to address any comments they may have once they do issue the number. That's all I have really is just a couple comments to notice.
Okay. Good, Bill. Regarding waiting for the DEP number, I'm content with whatever the rest of the commission would like to do. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. Does anybody have a feeling on they'd like to wait and see what DEP has to say before closing, or is everybody happy to sort of close with the caveat that if DEP says something, we'll circle back to that?
Yeah, this is Eric with Ace Solar. I'd just say you're one of many approvals we have to go get. In solar, there's always a tight timeline on incentives. I'd love to get an approval, even if it's conditioned if possible. If not, I totally understand the board. But if it's possible to get an approval, even with just the conditions that we have to get the DP number and we have to make those changes that Bill recommended, that would be a great step for us.
Okay. Anybody? Yeah, Dan.
I'm just an imperfect person and an imperfect commissioner. What does it mean for the applicants if DEP comes back with, if we close the hearing tonight and DEP comes back with something significant that we need to take up, are they going to have to do anything that carries costs or re-notifications or anything like that?
I mean, what would happen basically is if it's something that's all that severe and we've already voted to close it out, and it's not something we can sort of address administratively, then there would just be a superseding where DEP just overrides our opinion.
But they don't have to re-notify or reapply or anything like that?
No, and, you know, from a legal perspective, you know, if we just bend over backwards and open up a state, it's just more paperwork and it's not any extra legal stuff. You know, they just tell us off and, you know, give us a smack on the back of the hand, and we promise to do better next time.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine conditioning and doing all that tonight then. I just didn't want to do something that we thought were being useful and not being, and end up being not. Not a clear understanding on the applicant's part.
And Maureen and Eric, I presume you would have a similar understanding to what I just said.
Absolutely, Brian, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. So then, yeah, I mean, I don't mind approving it, you know. It doesn't seem like anybody has anything severe on their minds other than just waiting to hear what DEP has to say. Anybody want to throw something out there?
I would move to, Bill, do you want to?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I would move to approve the project pending a DEP number and checking on and any pursuant modifications on the points brought up by the conservation agent.
I'd second that.
Beautiful. All right, roll call. Benjamin?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
And Peter?
Yes.
And I will also vote in the affirmative. Just Holt, you know, if you want to work out those kinks, perfect. And otherwise, Eric and Maureen, you know, great. You know, I hope DEP doesn't shoot you down.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
You
Thank
too.
you, guys.
All right, what do we have next? We have Kevin Whitney of K&R Construction Company, LLC, 84 Boston Road, DEP number 050-1337, an NOI to construct a 7,400 square foot building with 2 paved access driveways, paved parking and access on 3 sides of the building, and a gravel storage area to the rear and side of the building. All right. Do we have somebody for Mr. Whitney?
Good evening.
I was wondering when you would come on. I've seen you here the whole time.
Yep, been watching all along.
That's what you do with that Tuesday night. All right. Well, what's going on?
All right. I am Chris York with Millennium Engineering. If Gretchen can make my desktop the home screen, I can share the planes.
I think you could, Chris. I did.
So I'm using a tablet to talk, and I'm using my desktop as my share screen. So
Okay, hold on.
Two different computers going.
All right, let's see. Try that.
There we go. All right. So I'll start with the existing conditions. This is a parcel that was carved off of the Newbury self-storage parcel on Route 1. It's a 2.28 acre parcel. It's got 2 acres of upland. It is across the street from the landfill we were just talking about, in a Butt Sled Road to the north. It's an entirely forested property right now. It's got some ledge outcrops. Got a pretty good difference in elevation. At elevation 12 down by the wetlands. We got some 30, 32 contours scattered throughout the site. The wetlands were delineated by Mark West of West Environmental. There's a bordering vegetated wetland to the south of our property. And then there's one on the northwest portion of our property. I will move down to sheet number 2, site plan. So the applicant is proposing a 7,400 square foot building, an associated paved and gravel storage area. This will be basically his home office for his construction company. The building will have some office space in it and also be used for some storage of vehicles. We're proposing 2 driveways onto the site. One on the southerly entrance will be used more for some of the larger trucks that'll come into the site for deliveries that can access the rear of the building. There's a more centrally located entrance that we use for the office workers. There's some parking out front. We're showing some paved area out front. We're showing a 30-foot wide paved strip around the building, 40 feet out in the back. The rest of the site will be gravel. We're showing some proposed catch basins and manholes scattered throughout. They'll take all the runoff from the site and discharge it to this constructed wetland out back here. It will also be on the private water and sewer. So we're showing a proposed leach field on the south side of the building, a reserve area. We got a proposed well located out back here. We're holding at least 10 feet from the wetlands throughout the site. We're not grading within 10 feet. We're at least 15 feet where we show some proposed wall along here. And let's see, go to the grading sheet, just shows a little more detailed grading. Everything's pitched away from the wetlands. So with this proposed wall, it's pitched away from the wetlands back onto the site, towards the nearest catch basin. Other than that, I can take questions, I guess, and then go from there.
Okay. Well, let's start with Benjamin, because I don't think I'm ready yet.
Should we ask Bill if he's been done a site thing or if he has any notes? Bill Holt.
Yeah, I want to know what Bill has to say, and I'm also wondering about a site walk, and then I might have some questions.
All right, let's do it now. Bill Holt, have at it.
All right. Actually, can I share my screen instead so I can move around the site, if that would work?
Chris, can you unshare?
Oh, sure.
Take me a second to get it going, but. Yeah, can everybody see that?
Yeah, it's coming up.
All right, so I'm just going to go to the sheet here. I think it's the grading plan.
It's not there yet, Bill.
It's not there yet. It's still loading in, Bill.
Oh, okay. Slow. I see it fine.
Mhm.
Can you see it, or am I not doing it?
There it is. Now
Got
it's through.
All right. So I have a couple of questions, a couple of concerns. This oil and water separator, mine is saying I'm unstable, so I might lose you. Hope I don't. The oil and water separator, which is located in this area here, it's seems like it should be relocated to possibly between this manhole and your sediment forebay. That way, we treat all the catch basins that are receiving runoff before it goes into the sediment forebay and into the constructed wetland detention basin.
Okay.
Just think if you should relocate it there, I think it should work fine there, and be able to handle, say, clean up all the all the catch basins. I mean, this is all parking area, I assume, for construction vehicles. That's what you're proposing from the looks of it. I will note that the grading is fairly aggressive to make this work. Does all flow to each of the catch basins as they designed it, which is not an issue. It does flow away from the wall. The wall is 10 foot high at this location right here, probably 12, 13 feet away from the wetlands. Then it goes down on either end to 0 on this end and 0 on that end, but it tapers down, still probably 5 or 6 feet high in this area along the wetland edges. So it's a pretty aggressive grading in terms of wall construction. I don't know what you're showing. Looks like a symbol of stone, a boulder wall. I don't know if that's possible at 10 feet high, or if you're planning on a different type of wall, a shea concrete wall, or some other.
Yeah, it would be a shea.
wall.
It would be a shea concrete type of wall, block wall.
Yeah, you might want to add a detail for that. I mean, I know Shay will actually do the design for you if you ask him to. So,
yeah,
you could give at least a detail of the wall, because there is. I think there is some step back. There is some step back on that, isn't there?
There is a detail on sheet 4.
Oh, I don't think I saw that. Let me take a look. Oh, I see it. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yep, that's okay.
Yep, and the guy rail on top, so it's good. But it is quite steep and quite close to the wetlands. I just wanted to point out to the board how high it would be. And as far as the constructed wetlands, it's a good design in terms of stormwater management, treatment wise. That goes to what Brian was mentioning at one of the other sites, that the wetlands itself will treat the water and help mitigate as it goes into the wetlands. Provides more treatment. I don't know if the board or commission would be looking for some kind of a increased buffer along here if it's possible. I know it's a commercial site and you're trying to maximize the use, but 10 foot is kind of close and doesn't offer a lot of. I mean, this is all sloping back towards the drainage flushing points, so which is better than having it flow towards the wetlands. So it's a good design that way. I know there's some ledge outcrops that shouldn't really affect. I mean, it's a good sized cut here, though. It's 30, you're going down to 23, so it's about a 7-foot cut there with some ledge outcrop. I assume that might require some blasting, possibly the same here. Going down 3 or 4 feet. Just something to consider. That's really, as far as the drainage design goes itself, they did use the Cornell runoff values. The mitigation is there for the design. It's, the pre and post runoff rates are the same or lower actually, and in the post they actually decrease the amount of runoff going into the wetland areas. So they're handling the water, treating it appropriately. Just a couple of things I noticed. I haven't seen the site. It might be good for a site walk. Everybody to see this site, see what it looks like. There's also a wall up here for the design, which is minor compared to that one. But that's all I had to really bring you up to date on as far as what I saw in my review. So I'll hand it back to the commission.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Yeah, I think at least personally, you helped a lot with walking through all that, because that was kind of it felt very dense to me. So I appreciate you breaking all that up. But let's go around the horn. Ben, anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, as I mentioned with the 3 Newburyport Turnpike, and spent a lot of time on in the Colantini Crossing hearings. I'm generally I would like to see a lot more conservation of buffer areas. I'm concerned about as Bill mentioned, the proximity of this project to the buffer and how much buffer they're taking up, or to the wetland and how much buffer they're taking up, especially given the grade that Bill was mentioning. And as I said earlier, I am an imperfect commissioner, but I did not see wildlife habitat checklist be completed and attached to this NOI, which I believe it needed.
That should have been included. Let me check.
I perhaps I missed it, but I don't think I saw it. If it's there, I apologize.
I would do a quick check. I brought it home with me, so. We'll look. Yes, it is in there. It is right after Mark West's wetland delineation report. So it's probably right near the back, 2/3 of the way through.
I don't see it on ours. I got Mark West Environmental. Then I have some aerials. Then I have the Oliver checks, lot printout for abutters, notification to abutter stuff. I don't see it, at least in the materials we received, unless I'm missing it, Bill.
I'm just double checking, Ben, in the attachments that I have, and I'm not seeing either in any of the anything yet.
So it should be 2 pages before the copy of the checks.
Yep, so I guess
It's an aerial view, and it shows a habitat off of our site. Well,
yeah, so I'm not referring to the, but that's not the wildlife checklist. That's your natural heritage map, right?
Correct, yep.
Yeah, so I believe that you need to do a survey and fill out forms for a wildlife habitat checklist in addition to the natural heritage survey. It's a different requirement. Bill might need to double check me on this, but I believe that's.
I can check into that. I was not aware of that being a thing, but we can look into that.
I'm almost feeling like a site walk would be not the worst thing for this parcel, but I don't know how the rest of the commission feels.
Well, Ben, I've just finished making it through the stormwater, the drainage, and yeah, that piece happens to have skipped being made into a PDF. It looks like. So, all right, well then, good. Thank you, Ben. I tend to agree with your assessment about the site walk, but let's move on to see what everyone else has to say. Bill Lord, your turn.
I'm okay with it so far. I would like to see the site. I drive up and down that road all the time. I'd like to know exactly what we're looking at.
Okay. Kevin? Or sorry, Daniel?
Yeah, let's do a site walk. Yeah. I'll see.
Okay, Kevin.
I'm okay with doing a site walk. I think that makes sense with how close it is to the wetlands and the slope and everything. Makes sense.
Okay. Peter.
Whoop. I just want to make sure, Chris, did you say it went from 35 down to 13? Was that did I get those numbers right for elevations?
About 32.
13?
32, yeah, so 12 or 13 in the wetlands, and then there's 32s up near Boston Road where some of the ledge outcrops are.
Ledge.
Yes.
Ledge.
Ledge.
The one word. Okay, great. So I presume, Peter, you'd be okay with doing a site walk then?
I think that'd be great.
All right. So then do we want to roll this into the site walk morning that we were doing on what was it? Or do we want to do this as a separate outing?
I don't think I'll have time the morning of the other one. I'm going to be, I have something at 1. So I think that would be a tight window for me. I suspect that 14th Street thing is going to take a while.
I agree.
Yeah, I didn't think it would work either, but just to float it. So then let's look at the calendar. We would be picking this up again on the 24th, presumably. So do we want to do this, if we're doing this on the 24th, do we want to maybe do this like the 18th, 19th, 20th, something like that?
I could do the 18th, but I'm also not here on the 24th, so I shouldn't have much weight. I don't think I can make the 24th meet.
Okay. Well, on the off chance that we see it again after the 24th, it doesn't hurt to come along.
Yeah. I prefer the 18th if that matters to anyone.
Okay. Anybody else have any preferences?
I'm fine the 18th except for 11 to 12:30.
Okay. Kevin, on the 18th, do you have a preference for early or late?
Mornings are usually easier for me.
Okay. Does that work for everybody if we do maybe a 10 a.m. on the 18th?
If it's at all possible, do 9 a.m., but I don't know.
I can do 9. 9's better for me.
Okay, we can do 9. As long as, going once, going twice, sold. 9 a.m. on the 18th. I presume that's okay with you, Chris?
Yes, that's fine. I will make sure that the owner, Kevin Whitney, knows, and I will let Mark West know as well. I'm assuming it's probably a good idea that he's out there as well.
Perfect. Sidewalk 84 Boston Road, Wednesday, November 18th, 9 a.m. Beautiful. It's in the book. All right. Well, with that being said, I presume, Chris, that you'll work through some of Bill Holt's comments between now and when we see you, and maybe there'll be something you can tell us about on the. Yes, Ben.
Chris, if it's at all not a terrible ask, could you either for the site walk or the next meeting provide a ratio for how much of the total disturbed area of your project occurs within the 100-foot buffer?
Yes, I can add a little chart to the plan.
Thank you very much.
Do you want the proposed building staked out, or?
The more visuals on the ground, the better, is generally where I come down. So fence lines, parking lots, buildings, anything that, you can put a flag in the ground about would be useful.
Okay, we can do that. We can definitely do the building, and I guess we can pick a few other, maybe some stone walls, wall corners or something.
Yeah. I think, Chris, if you're going to go out there and do a walk and put some flags in the ground, my request would be if you walk off somewhere and you can't see any more flags, put a flag in the ground and just write down what it is, so that, as we walk through the site, we know where we are. That would be helpful.
Fair enough. We can do that.
Great.
I anticipate that we'll get some comments from planning board's engineer. Will be reviewing this as well, I believe. So probably by the time we have the next meeting, we may have comments from him and any additional plan changes to you in advance of the next meeting.
Great. And if you could, as Ben was saying, you may have picked up, what is it, the 24th, we'd be seeing you again. And so that means if you could put on your calendar to have everything in by the noon on the 19th, as your deadline for stuff, that would be excellent, because then we'd all have time to, we'd have the weekend to look at it.
Okay, sounds good.
Lovely. Thank you. All right. Well, then let's have a motion to kick this can down the road and have Chris come back to us.
Are there any abutters before we do a motion?
There is no one else here.
All right,
Nope.
I move to continue to November 24th, 7 p.m. meeting.
Second.
All right. Roll call. Benjamin.
Yes.
Bill Lord, I see your thumb up in the air. Great. Daniel. I presume you, yeah, good. And Kevin.
Yes.
And Peter.
Yes.
And I'm also voting in the affirmative. All right. Thank you, Chris.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Last one, everybody. Arthur D'Angelo at 56 Cabbage Road, DEP number 050-1311. A modification to an order of conditions to change the height requirements of a replacement and system. So, Mr. D'Angelo, I see you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. You're a very patient man.
Yeah, it was interesting, actually. My original order allowed us to put an 80-foot walkway on 14 piles behind our house through the marsh to a potential dock that would be built in the future. Due to a revised pile plan, we were able to do the walkway with 12 piles instead of 14, and the 88 feet, 77 feet approximately. So we have in the actual as-built to minimize the impact to the marsh. The old dock, you have all my 5 attachments in front of
you?
I submitted some attachments.
Yeah, I sent them to everybody. You want me to come up on the screen? Or?
No.
Yeah, Bill, put them, if Mr. D'Angelo would like you to, let's put them up, and then, then it's all on the record, so to speak, and, it's part of the meeting.
I can hold them up if I had to, so.
What is that?
So
let's let Bill Holt do it. It'll be clearer. You're getting kind of reflection back from your computer screen.
Yeah.
And then you can, Bill can
coming up.
drive.
I walked up and down the river to make sure I wasn't asking for anything that's not already built all up and down the river. I would say the average width of the docks that we see on this side of the river are approximately 42 inches. Most widths exceed the height by quite an amount. There are several that are about approximately in the 1-to-1 ratio. One of the attachments I submitted is my neighbor, who's on the same north-south orientation as I am, and he has a 1-to-1, 36 to 36. It seems like the recommendation for small docks has as its intent protection of the marshlands. And so I submitted a bunch of pictures to show that, there's our old one that was falling apart. I submitted that to show that the grass underneath it, even though that one was 42 inches wide at approximately 16 inches height, pretty much showed that the grass it traversed was still in good condition. The attachment I sent number 2, that is that's my neighbors with the same orientation that I'm going to be at 1-to-1, 36 inches, approximately 36 inches. And I submitted that picture to show that the grasslands underneath pretty much intact. They look exactly like the grasslands that surround it. Yes, so that's just to show you same orientation, 36-inch width, 36 inches height. The grass is it's intact, looks just like anything, like there's nothing ever traveled over. Attachment 3 I submitted because this project was just finishing up as we were starting our NOI. And this project here width is 47 inches with a 38 inches height. Now, he was finishing up just as I was starting. You know, when I began the process, I was told there was no options. I had to follow the 1.5 to 1, which I did. It cost me a lot of extra money to buy extra high piles to meet the height requirement. Attachment 4, see that's up there. That's my wife standing there. And those piles are 64.5 inches high. The walkway would be just slightly down to the top of that. So if you were walking down it, your head would be approximately higher than a basketball net would be. So pretty high when you're looking down, and you know, it looks like there's going to be a narrow walk at the 42 inches. I submitted number 5. That's my neighbor. He's an artist, and he was the first one over to me, letting me know that I put a block and blocking his view from his deck. He's a nice guy. I think he meant that, you know, no harm or anything, but it would be more of an aesthetic problem if we have to put a handrail, which you would have to probably put a handrail because of that height. And there is nobody at this height. I put a ladder up there just to see how high it would be. And boy, you're up high. You know, we're sensitive to the board's concerns regarding the ecological nature of the marsh. We have 8,000 approximately square feet here of marsh behind our house. We don't use any chemical fertilizers. We're careful what goes into the septic system. So we're sensitive and we're good custodians of the land. And we're pretty confident that we would not destruct any of the marsh grasses. My wife and I were seniors. We still have balance right now. We feel like we could walk on it pretty confidently, but we have nieces and nephews and grandchildren that will be using this. And boy, it's just too high. And I wouldn't want to build, you know, a barrier on each side to protect people falling out. But so what we're requesting is a 42-inch walkway on a 36-inch height, which is a pretty common combination going up and down the river. Also, one that was started, just finished up not too long ago also. They were allowed to start in the marsh at 0 height, build up to a higher height, and then get out to the marsh. So we're the only ones that I know of being held to the standard in that. I just can't believe it would be a safe structure for us to build. So we've got the piles in, 12 instead of 14. Now that one right there is 49 inches high with 38 inches. That one finished up just as we were starting here. And that's actually what I wanted, exactly what this fellow had. And I thought I would be able to reconstruct the existing one because he was allowed to reconstruct his existing one. Further, to improve the plan, our old one was right on the property line. We have since moved it over 10 feet away from the property line to provide a good clearance. So I don't have anything technical to say other than, you know, the thing is high. It's extremely high. It's going to look terrible. So we would like to get a lowered, you know, 42-inch width to the 36-inch height, which appears to be pretty much the typical walkway going through the marsh on this side of the river.
Okay. Well, thank you for a very thorough and clear explanation of what you'd like to do. I appreciate thorough and clear things. So let's ask Bill what he has to say, just because I know that docs, you know, it's an easy thing to look at your neighbors and wonder why you can't have what theirs is. But, you know, it's surprisingly often there's actually reasons. So let's see if Bill Holt happens to know what the reasons are to help you with knowing the situation.
Well, all I can say is that on DEP's regulations, there's no requirement for a specific height of a dock, other than it shouldn't affect the marsh grass growth. So that's all they really say. They don't give you a 1-to-1. They don't give you a 2-foot height, 3-foot height. They just say it shouldn't affect the vegetation growth. Under Army Corps, they say a 1-to-1 ratio is appropriate to protect the marsh grass and the growth and have enough sunlight on either side to be able to allow the grass to grow. So, and they also require a certain spacing, which I think he has the spacing on the decking, which he's proposing. And then if you go to the ACEC or Marine Division Fisheries, they require 1.5. Not require, they suggest 1.5-to-1 width to height ratio, which is what he proposed or had approved. So I would leave it up to the commission as to whether they would be entertained allowing him to lower it to either 1.5 or the 3 feet he's requesting, or to 1-to-1 ratio, which would be 42 inches, which would be an improvement over the 63, but it wouldn't be quite as low as he's asking for. But I can't say I have a preference one way or the other. I do see what he's saying. I see that there are a lot of docks that were recently constructed that were at the 3-foot height approximately, but they're also at the 3-foot width. So the 3-foot width, it should be 3 foot high according to 1-to-1 ratio, which is the Army Corps. So I would just leave it up to the commission to discuss and come up with your own decision on that.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. And I presume too, in your answer there, you also are saying that you can't find anything in his original file that speaks to, the requirement that was put on him the first time around.
I don't see anything other than they did 1.5-to-1. They did 1.5-to-1 ratio, height to width. So again, that's it's the Division of Marine Fisheries. I think it's their recommendation is a 1.5-to-1.
Okay.
Army Corps is 1-to-1, and DEP is silent on a ratio, but they do say it shouldn't affect the growth. I think his pictures kind of depict the fact that if it's 3 feet high, it doesn't seem to affect the growth.
Sorry, Bill, I misunderstood you. I thought you said that if he lowered it to a certain height, he would still be meeting 1.5-to-1. I misunderstood that he's currently at 1.5-to-1.
He's at 1.5-to-1 now. He's got a 42-inch width, and he's got a 1.5-to-1 with 63 inches height. If he goes to 42-inch height, it'd be 1-to-1, which would be lower by 21 inches or 22 inches. So it would be, improvement over the height of it is now. It would still be higher than the budding docks in the area, which seem to be between 2 and 3 foot high.
Okay.
On when they were built.
Okay. So Ben, this is kind of your sweet spot for what you contribute to these conversations. What have you got?
I guess all that I would say is that the DMF recommendations were based on 2 separate studies. One was a specifically designed and replicated study. These are words that are meant to tell you that they were done the right way as far as the statistics and the scientific design of the study was conducted, to look at different dock height to width ratios, and they found that a minimum of 1-to-1 is what you need. And then they did a follow-up where they surveyed over 1,000 different private docks in coastal Massachusetts. And that was also supportive of a minimum of 1-to-1 and showed that those with the least impacts actually were over 5 feet high. So the DMF recommendations are based on some pretty decent science, both of longer standing docks and set controlled experiments. The reason also for some of the discrepancies that I think Mr. D'Angelo is very right in pointing out between him and his neighbors is that this work the work was conducted in 2013 through 2015, and the recommendations are fairly new. So that's why, Mr. D'Angelo, your dock is looking different than some of your neighbors that were constructed within the last 10 years, 8 to 10 years ago, is because these recommendations are fairly new.
One was just recently completed late summer.
Well, I think that you'd have to, so there's a 3-year period on when things were permitted and then they could be constructed. I don't know the address. We've certainly looked at some of those docks. There are also things that happen there are not permitted. You know, not everybody comes in to get permitted, unfortunately. I spend a lot of time on the river. I know Bill Lord spends a lot of time on the river, and I certainly go up the river. I'm like, hey, look, there's somebody with a weed whacker in the salt marsh, weed whacking salt marsh. Like, things happen, and you know, unless there's people who say something, then they happen. So I can't speak.
Property right beside the old dockway.
Yeah, all I can say, Mr. D'Angelo, is that you know, I think I've been on the board for 5 years now, and while I've been doing this, we've tried to adhere to that 1.5 to 1 ratio, to the best of my memory. So I guess I just wanted to inform the rest of the commission that I think Brian was asking for my opinion and any background information I had on why that ratio exists. I really think that I've seen a couple presentations by by EMF staff scientists on this work. I think it is credible work, and so I think that really the minimum height should be 1 to 1 for sure. And so I think you were asking for less than 1 to 1 though in your revised order of conditions. Am I correct in that, Bill?
That would be my preference, but.
Yeah, I mean, I could see going to 1 to 1 personally. I think that I understand. I have small children, young children. I understand your worries there, and I have parents and unfortunately I don't have any grandparents anymore, but I have parents and who are, you know, getting older, so I understand your concerns there as well. But I think 1 by 1 is a defensible and good number.
Okay, so as long as we maintain 1 to 1, whether it be 36 to 36 or 42 to 42, as long as I keep the 1 to 1.
Well, I think your piles are, I would guess that given your piles are set, you're kind of locked into a width now for the most part, right?
Yeah, I'm locked into a width. Well, it all depends if I put the headers on the inside or the outside. So.
Yeah. So I don't know how far the commission wants to go in letting you modify your plans that we've approved. Without, you know, I personally be more comfortable in you making a decision, telling us what you're going to do, and then we amend your OOC. I think that's probably what we want to do, Chairman Colleran. Rather than just say, okay, as long as it's 1 to 1, we're good with it. That might be where we want to go.
So
it's true. I think Ben's point is well taken, and this body functions better if we have a yes or no question in front of us, as opposed to a telling you a range or telling you what to do. It just works a little bit better. But
I'm also going to point out that I laid out my opinion of the DMF science and my opinion of this proposal. I think that if anybody on the commission has a different opinion, that they should have an opportunity to voice that.
Well, Ben, that's very generous of you. I appreciate it.
Bill Lord, I saw a hand on Bill Lord.
We, I think Andrew Haley had a talk in front of us, you know, the beginning of the year, and we went with the 1 to 1, and you know, the dock came out nice. He built it the way we wanted to. I think the 1 to 1 is the minimum that we should try to move forward with.
Bill, do you remember that 1 to 1 dock we approved? I've got this vague recollection that we had a lot of spacing between the planks to let more light in through the top of the dock. Do you remember that?
Me or Bill Holt?
Well, Bill Holt, Bill Lord, anybody.
Bill Holt wasn't here, I don't think.
I was not here, so it has to be Bill Lord.
Yeah, Kevin, you remember this?
I believe Tom Hughes, he's done several docks with us, or planned several docks, and it's the decking that allows more light transmission, not necessarily a spacing, but the decking itself allows 50% light transmission through the decking itself, and so we allowed 1 to 1 in those cases, if I remember correctly.
Kevin, I think you're right about that. The DMF recommendations have spacing recommendations, but Tom has caught on to that different material he uses for the decking that allows a greater light transmission. Good memory.
So maybe we could share that with, maybe have Bill Holt contact Tom and share that with Arthur. And if he uses that decking material, we'd go down to 1-to-1.
What is, I'm not familiar with the decking, but, I'm familiar with pressure treated and a composite, but I'm not familiar with anything else that, other than height and spacing that allow sun to penetrate underneath the dock.
I think as a commission, we have to do some research and figure out what it was, just going off of memory. I don't think any of us have that, but.
I was planning to use pressure treated, 1x6, 5/4 pressure treated, 1x6.
It's going to be a cost issue, I would suspect, and we can figure it out, and you can look into it and come back to us with the new plans. I think that's a prefabricated composite that Tom brought in for us to look at, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Bill.
I think it's sort of like a honeycomb.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a special decking made just.
I've looked at everything. I haven't seen anything like that.
It's called through flow decking.
What is it called?
Again, Dan? Through flow?
Through flow decking. But I'm just going to say, I've been on the commission longer than anybody here, and it's always been 1-to-1 at the minimum.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know why we were told 1-5-1, but when we started the project, it was implied to me it wasn't an option for 1-to-1.
I'm just sort of curious, back at the original hearing, I looked at the minutes, and it wasn't like there was any, pushback or discussion.
Well, at the meeting, I thought the rule was 1.5-to-1, so I complied with what I was told to do.
Was that largely Mr. Packer was talking?
Largely, yes.
Okay.
And later, Bill provided me with the I thought it was a law or a regulation, so, I think the town knows what they're doing.
I think there's concern that DEP is now looking at these things and looking, they really want 1.5, but, I don't know.
It's crazy high. So I can live with the 1-to-1, and I can pick a number, 42 inches to 42 inches or 40 inches to 40 inches. That would work fine with us. And I feel it'd be aesthetically pleasing to my neighbors, and it will provide maximum sunlight underneath the deck with the traverses. Even our one at 16 inches didn't have the grass. And my neighbor is at 36 to 36, and I showed you a picture. That grass is as healthy as the grass that surrounds it. So I think 1-to-1 is workable. And if I need to, whatever I need, you can select 40 inches or 42 inches, both would work.
All right. Well, then it sounds like most of the commission, has sort of expressed their opinion. And, if you look into that through flow decking, the quality of your 1-to-1 would be higher than the quality of some other people's 1-to-1. So that would be, hopefully that works for you. Hopefully there's something there that it's not.
Somebody on the river using this true flow decking? Did we say somebody has actually installed it?
Yeah. Did they just get approved or did they build it?
I think it's just been approved, but I can't remember them all. But
well, it was the one up,
Middle Street. Middle Street.
And then what's the one over there near the academy? That I don't know if that's been built yet, though.
Yeah, I don't know if Middle Street's been built yet.
Yeah. I would use it. I don't have a problem using it. Just as long as I can find it and acquire.
Yeah, I take your point.
I've never heard of it.
Instead of going through Tom, Bill Holt, if you can happen to check out and see if it's spec'd out, maybe we can get the brand name straight from our files and save Arthur another.
THRUFLOW. I'm on their website right now. There's a dealer in Gloucester.
Ben, you're very effective. I like your multitasking.
Yeah, right. J&L Welding and Machine in Gloucester is a supplier.
What is it, see-through? Is it transparent?
No, it's like it's not even a honeycomb. It's here. Hold up.
Gretchen, can you make him a co-host?
Oh yeah.
There you go.
You guys see this?
Oh, I've never seen that.
Yeah. So that's why, I mean, it lets a lot of light through. Yeah, I don't know if it's a metal or a composite, but it's clearly a fabricated.
Doesn't look structural. They have to look like they got a lot of joists there to hold it up.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. It does look like they have a little bit more. It doesn't look like thick.
I think I'd be more comfortable with just using pressure treated. It blends in with the marsh better. You can hardly see it. It almost blends in with the marsh. And that if I could build it perfectly, I'd build it so it was functional but invisible. And I think the pressure treated boards blends right in with the marsh.
Yeah, it looks like they have this maple color that would be about the same as pressure treated. But anyways, it's an option that's out there for you.
Well, I'm going to request that I prefer to use the pressure treatment. I think it looks better, and I can put the spacing as the guideline recommends. Which I
think
my original plan.
I think this might be the point where we sort of you come up with what you want to do. You talk to the suppliers, you talk to the contractors, you figure it out. And when you've heard that we're not going to go past 1-to-1 from the sound of it, and then bring it back. Yeah, bring it back with what you want to change, and then we could have probably a much quicker discussion.
Okay, so what do I do? Submit another? How do?
Call Bill in the morning.
What's that?
Call Bill Holt in the morning.
Okay. Sorry, Bill.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so you probably have to
just so that I
revise
can
your
make
request
sure
for the
I'm
next
requesting
meeting.
the right thing. We can live with 1-to-1, whether it would be 42 inches or 40 inches. It'd be one of those. My preference would be to use the pressure treated, but I'll definitely look into the through flooring. I'm interested, the through flow design.
If you don't like it, if you don't like the vibe, no big deal. We've spoken of the 1-to-1. That would just be making it a higher quality 1-to-1, if you will. You get even better light at the same height. But figure out what you want to do. Figure out how you want to structure it. Come back to Bill and just let him know the specs, and then we can do like a thumbs up or thumbs down type thing at the next time.
Am I hearing? Are you telling me to use the through flow, or is this?
No. What we're saying is that we would smile upon that, right? We appreciate the benefit to the marsh, but it wouldn't change your 1-to-1. And what we're asking for is the 1-to-1. We're allowing the 1-to-1. Yeah.
I don't want to hold you up anymore. Thank you. Very.
Bill Lord, are you?
Yes.
Hold on, Mr. D'Angelo. Bill Lord, are you raising your hand to say something? Or are you just stretching your fingers? I guess Bill Lord, you're stretching your fingers. All right. All right. So technically, sorry, I've just got the giggles now. From a technical perspective, shall we vote to continue this on the 24th? Or do you want to vote to sort of accept his modifications with Bill's, let Bill sort of work it out in the fine print?
That's what I want.
Motion to approve with conditions per conservation agent.
Okay. Anybody want a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay. Roll call then. Benjamin. Thumbs up from Benjamin. All right. Bill Lord.
That's
Nothing. No, he's having technical glitching. All right. Daniel.
Yes.
All right. Kevin.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
And I will also vote in the affirmative. All right, great. So, Mr. D'Angelo, you worked that out with Bill Holt. It sounds like we're all in agreement about what really needs to happen, and you don't need to come to another meeting.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. What else do we have left on this agenda? We have no extensions, certificates, reissuances, other business, the ACEC policy review. Bill Holt, what is going on?
Well, I think I sent you the revised copy that was got back from the town councils. She made a couple of revisions. I don't know if you got a chance to look at them. It's fairly minimal. I think I might have it on my.
Hey, Bill Holt, just for the sake of reminding our viewership at home who's watching this on a tape delay here, let's do a quick review of what this is about.
I think I'm lost. Hello?
I can do it if Bill wants me to.
Yeah. Do it, Ben.
I'm fading out.
Yeah. So the town or the Conservation Commission is investigating a policy to better direct us on how to handle applications for new structures. And by structures, we are solely talking about piers and docks within the ACEC. The town has a lot of ACEC property along the Great Marsh and the Parker River. Basically the regulatory structure is such that there seems to be a clear state law that the new structure should not be built, but the regulatory agencies in charge of that rarely see the actual applications, and hence they get waved through. And it kind of comes down to the local conservation commissions to enforce it, although it is not as clear how 310 CMR, the linkage between 310 and that regulation is a little bit more convoluted. So we have written a policy document outlining how those two things are linked and stating that given that we are, given everything our homework that we've done about how they are linked, that we are going to consider, let me go to the language in there. The Town of Newbury Conservation Commission has considered all the information above and determined that the commission will presume as a general policy matter that the construction of new piers or other structures within the portion of the Great Marsh ACEC in Newbury is impermissible as described above. That was the purpose of this policy. The town council added a lot of language basically after that saying, by the way, this is a policy, not a regulation. Saying basically just covering the town's legal rear to say that, yeah, we recognize this is a policy and we're not making a regulation. So if you really want to fight us about it, we're still going to listen to you and talk about it. And you know, the council's advice to us was that if we really want to do something to make it a regulation, but it's something we can consider as we move forward in discussing any potential bylaw changes or additions in the next year as we're slated to. But given the number of cases we've seen, or number of hearings, that we've had in the past year or two for new piers and docks within the ACEC, I think it makes sense to go forward with the policy.
Excellent. Thank you for the summary.
Yep. Hopefully it made sense.
I thought it was rather clear. I followed the whole thing. And I don't do that most of the time. Great. So then what is the action, Bill Holt, that we are capable of taking at the moment? Are there any, or do we need to change our language and send it back to council, or can we sort of vote to adopt that policy, with corrections? I mean, what are our choices?
Yeah, I think she indicated that if you adopt the policy with their edits, if you're okay with the edits, that you could do that. You could vote on it and adopt it today.
Okay. So Ben, do you have a feeling about, let's start with what we're given and then we can move on into other things later. If we do end up with a bylaw change, then we can build a regulation. For now, we should adopt the policy, or would you rather tweak it a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, this has kind of been my baby, and I do think that, like I said at the end there, it makes, especially I have a feeling that there are people out there who are waiting to see how this shakes out before they come back in or before they put in an application. I'm in favor. Again, I wrote this, so I'm in favor of enacting the policy. I think it's the smart thing to do and the right thing to do by the resource. I don't think it's like the most popular thing to do, but I think it's the right thing to do for the resource. And I think at the end of the day, we probably need to work with DEP and CZM and figure out a way to put this ball in their court where it belongs rather than our court. That's like really what should happen. But until then, I think that this is a good path forward and gives us some leverage to perhaps make applicants do that as part of justification for why they shouldn't follow the policy.
Good. Yeah, I don't like letting things drop off and leaving things to fall between cracks. So I also would like to move ahead. But let's see what the rest of y'all have to say. Let's do this in reverse order just for fun. Let's start with Peter.
I am happy to follow Ben's lead.
Excellent.
Did that get through?
Yeah, it came through slowly, but it worked. Yeah. Kevin, what do you think?
No, I think I'm happy to work with it, kind of move forward with it, because it'd be nice to have something to work off of and to reference.
Cool. Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing. I just, there's some things I don't understand about it. I mean, but I think it's, anything we can do to kind of clarify how we react to stuff in the ACEC is good. So I'm for it.
Cool. And Bill Lord?
I think I'm for it. I don't want to make it so restrictive that, people are either afraid to get permits, so they do things without a permit, or they, we become, the river is a big part of the charm of Newbury, and I think more people that use the river, it's better for the river, because then they worry about the river because it's something that they use or that they care about. And, I think we should protect it, but I also don't think we should be so restrictive that people, can't get a dock, or they're afraid to tell us they're rebuilding their dock because we're going to drive them crazy with the approval.
Yeah. If I recall right, I think Ben's language sort of addressed some of that, because he wasn't saying, anything about you can or can't. It was just, you should have already gone through and been approved. And there's just a sneaky hole for, projects to sneak down and, escape the oversight they should have had regardless. Is that about right, Ben?
Yeah, I think that with Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would say to Bill is that we're not enacting any new regulation here. We're not like doing anything that it hasn't already been supposedly decided or enacted under state law. We're just, there's just an existing loophole so that projects get through that should be denied. So I think that in reality, there are projects that have been approved in the last 5-10 years that would no longer get approved. But in reality, those projects should not have been approved. They didn't meet the standards, and they didn't meet what's supposed to happen in the ACEC. It's just that they were exploiting, the consultants figured out a loophole to exploit within the law, the way that regulatory commissions interact with each other. So they were using that loophole to get through. And so having identified that loophole, I'm suggesting that we close it. But that will lead to applications that have been getting through no longer getting through. But that they shouldn't have been getting through, I guess is the point. It's not like...
David, you got your hand up there?
Yeah, I'm just sort of trying to picture how this is going to work when we get an application. And, you know, do we just sort of say, hey, this is our policy. I'm sorry, we can't issue order conditions. There's no way to condition this correctly. I think it all sort of falls into just no impact to the ACE. It's no negligible impact. It's no significant impact whatsoever. But I'm just trying to picture how it's going to unfold. Then they're going to have to appeal to DEP. And what will DEP do? It'll be kind of interesting to see what happens if and when it happens.
Yeah, Dan, I agree with you. I think that my vision for what happens is if we get, we tell people this is the policy. If they contest it, we say, come back to us with a letter from CZM and DEP, both entities, not just DEP. It has to be also from CZM saying that this is an approved structure, and then we'll condition it right up.
Okay.
Right. In the long run, what should happen is that, Bill, and this is important for you, Bill, is that if the town writes a management plan, a natural resource management plan for the ACEC, and it's approved by the state, that includes building new docks and how they're going to be built, then we can have new structures. And there are places that have done that, but the town needs to get its act together to write that and submit it to the Secretariat, Environmental and Energy Secretariat, Energy and Environmental Affairs. So there are pathways to make things happen.
Right. Right. And I understand it the same way, Dan. You know, the way I always understood Ben's initial concern was that people that should have been getting approval from one agency found a way out from under it. And so now all our policy means is that you need to get approval from the other agencies. We're not granting approval. We're not conditioning something by ourselves, right? We're not going out on a limb regulatorily. We're just making sure that the check boxes all get checked before we would let something move forward. And I think that, you know, that's sort of a safe space. You know, we're not saying we are denying you. We're saying you need to go check with somebody who could or should or maybe won't deny you. So I feel like there's a low risk here, other than maybe some bluster from some arguably angry consultants who don't like seeing their loophole taken away.
So shall I move to adopt the policy as our guiding policy for this issue going forward?
Daniel, I think you should second it. I think we should let Ben first his own baby.
I'm much happier with Dan approving it. Or motion.
It's a motion.
Thanks, Daniel.
There's a second.
All right. Well, let's roll call this. Benjamin?
Yes.
Wait. Hold on. What are we approving? What's the specific proper, like, let's put a time on this date. Let's make sure we know what we're doing. the motion would be what? The motion would be to adopt the edited policy that was received from town council, and to integrate her corrections and suggested language into Ben's template. I mean, what kind of?
No, we're moving to adopt the amended policy provided by town council effective as of this meeting.
That's better.
Concise.
It's more legalistic.
So I guess I'm gonna end up making that motion. Fine, I end up moving to do that. Somebody second that thing.
Yes.
Thanks, Pete.
Well, Benjamin, will you
Yes.
Vote for your motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Bill Lord.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
And Peter.
Yes.
And I will also vote in the affirmative. And I would like to also compliment Peter on whatever you were just doing. You're like, I don't know if you're catching a sneeze or laughing into your hand or whatever, but I loved it. All right. So then, yeah, you're faster than I am. First and second, roll call. Benjamin.
Yes.
Bill Lord.
Yes.
Daniel. Kevin.
Yes.
And Peter.
Yes.
And also in the affirmative. So thank you, everyone. That was good.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
All right. We'll see you all at the field walk. Good evening.